Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A new show, a new concept, two in the chamber. My name's Neokai. I'm joined with the lovely Twiggy as we are starting our very own podcast. I think it's a good time in terms of the Valorant industry, basically. I feel like to start one. There's many going at the moment, but there's a lot to talk about. Let's go back to the start, Twiggy. And of course, we're going to start with how we got into it. I'll let you take the mic here. Introduce yourself and tell us how you got involved in Valorant.
All right. Hi, my name is Twiggy. I do Valorant. And I guess so when I started, it was an interesting one, right? Because I saw the Valorant beta was coming out. I think we both came from CS:GO. I was like, I want to do this. I want to get into Valorant. I want to be. At the time, I didn't even know I wanted to be a commentator or anything like that. I was like, I want to be a pro. I want to go pro in Valorant. Sure. Because I'd got to a decent level in CS:GO. I got to global elite. I'd tried out with teams and stuff like that. Never really went anywhere. But I was like, you know what, Valorant, new game. Everybody's going to be at the same level as me when we start. Get into that. Get really good at the game. All good. And then I was like gold in the beta, and I was like, okay, not going anywhere. All good. So I think that was kind of when I got my first thing with commentating, because I remember in CS:GO I would do little joking commentary in matchmaking and stuff like that. And then I was part of a community, and we started our own little tournament, a little grassroots tournament in the beta called the Scuffed Cup. It was called the Scuffed Cup. Okay. And I commentated for it, and it was fun. And then I didn't do anything with that until the year after, but still, that was my get going in Valorant, and that was my get going in commentary as well. So there you go.
And then when was it your kind of first big one? When was the first one where you were like, okay, getting a bit of money here, maybe this could lead to something, or when you ever kind of thought that potentially this could be a career?
I think it was Cloud9 training grounds. There was so they do a little thing with under 18 kind of players and try and cultivate some talent within the community. I think they do it a lot in League, but Valorant was kind of up and coming at the time as well. And my partner for that one was, can I remember his name? Daniel Mena was his name. Saved. That's it. Saved cast. Okay. And he just got me a few gigs with Cloud9 and Team Liquid, because he already had those kinds of connections. Decent. And that was the start of that, and then it kind of snowballed into VCT, and then so it was weirdly quick kind of start.
I guess mine's slightly different in terms of I was a commentator prior to Valorant coming out, because I've been doing CS:GO. So I started CS commentating in September 2020, and I started that. That was basically a joke, essentially, is they kind of the weird thing. So one of my friends was very good at CS:GO in the UK, and he played for an ESEA Open team at the time. So he was randomly, it was just in lockdown, peak lockdown in the UK. For those who don't know, nothing was open apart from food shops and hospitals. That was it. There was nothing else open. So couldn't go to the gym. I wasn't even allowed into the office. And at the time, I was doing a placement year from university. So it's you do 1 year out, you go and work in industry, and then you come back and do your final year. So I was an accountant at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I was a trained accountant, very boring. But I worked from home as well. So I had my own place. I had a 1-bed studio apartment. It was this tiny place, and I used to roll out of bed, take 3 steps to my desk, and then that was my day. That's all I did basically. It was the whole thing was just the dinkiest apartment, but it was very boring. So my mate one time was 7 p.m. at night. I'd finish work. We would normally just play CS:GO or play anything. And he asked me to cast, and I did it as a joke. Someone heard me, was like, do you want to come do some CS work? And it snowballed from there. And then Valorant came around, and my Valorant start was very again, it was just pot luck basically. I'd played the game a lot in the beta, and this is right towards the end of the beta before it got fully released. There was a beautiful company called RixGG, and the mighty RixGG, and they used to have these RixGG opens. They were awesome, so cool. And I had friends who played in them from university, because I went to Loughborough University, and there's some pretty decent players there who've played for some fairly good teams. And I think in terms of uni standards, they're seen as one of the better unis, kind of top 10 from my understanding. They're pretty good. But some of those guys were playing in it, and it was normally Crema and Retro who did all the RixGG opens, and then one time Crema couldn't make it, so Retro, who I work with in CS:GO, had asked me oh mate, you free this weekend? You fancy doing a bit? And I was like, yeah, sick, let's do it. So did it, and to be honest, I was very much out of my depth. I think transitioning from color in CS:GO to color in Valorant, especially when I'd played the game a lot, but I definitely hadn't studied the color side. That was tough. I remember it was definitely a big learning curve. And I always remember me and Retro were together, and it went really well to the point where Ricks were yeah, like you two, carry this on. That's sick. I mean, I think Kremmer had other gigs going on, so he was like, yeah, you two carry it on. So but like once a month, and we did it for a bit, and then one time Retro couldn't make it, so it was me and X Warrior. Obviously, X Warrior now doing like VCT and whatnot, and we killed it. Our first cast together when we did Valorant, it was like, I remember Ryan Central and Dinko were both in the chat, and they were like, "You two," like I remember them like literally saying like, "You two are killing it," and I was like, "Oh man, this is like that." That's what you want to hear when you're kind of this young caster. And this is still beta, or maybe like just after beta. It's like, oh no, it would be after beta because it was like 2021. But even still, it was awesome, and that was like my first start. Then did Epic Land, which for people in the UK, pretty big thing. It's like it's one of the more social events in the UK, but. I was on the finals of that with Rook and Yinsu, in fact. This is Yinsu prior to VCT. So Yinsu hosted it, and then me and Rook casted. And yeah, I think even still at the time, I didn't really think there was kind of a world in which I could make it work because I couldn't really see the pathways into it. Like, I struggled compared to CSGO, where it was like, there was an abundance of tournaments, but obviously with Valorant, there's much fewer to select from. And there's a lot of great talent who are making the move across. But then again, I got pretty fortunate because Polaris came around, and I knew the Pro Mod guys. I'd worked ESL Prem for CSGO with them, and they were like, you do Valorant as well. Come do Polaris. So I was like, yeah, I'm happy to. So did season 1 of Polaris, and of course then season 2 was Euroso on as well. And then from there, VRL finals Berlin. So all in all, a good story. A weird story. I never thought it was a possibility doing Valorant because how difficult I found it at the start, but now I definitely see the realms, and especially after working with Freaks and working within Valley MEA, I really hope it comes more. Who knows? But that was good. Hey. And I guess I guess it's kind of like now with everything changing, there's rumors of there being way more tournaments in towards 2023, so potentially who knows.
Yeah, I like that's the thing, right? Is that this podcast is a way for us to get hired. Obviously, it's just like there's so much more now that there's going to be 21 challenger leagues and all of that. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast. But like just like the amount of stuff that's coming up, there's going to be even more amateur leagues, so it's going to be more space for newcasters to get involved as well. So I'm really excited for that. That's going to be cool, really cool.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, even with kind of what we've seen starting to be set up, like the Beacon events as well. Like, Beacon in the UK. I know Liquid are running one literally right as we speak, if I'm right in saying. They started it 2 days ago. And I mean, the fact that we can have that level of investment is pretty sick to see. So we'll have to wait and see. But we'll talk more about kind of franchising and all that stuff. We will have a special guest coming on a little bit later, so we can talk about that much later. We'll talk on to recent news, of course. As of today recording, it's Friday 23rd. So we've just had, of course, the results of Champions. Congratulations, Loud. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never think going into it, it wasn't the team I expected to win, but I was pleasantly surprised that they did.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a toss-up between Optic and Loud for me, I think, to start with. It was like Optic, Optic, FPX, Loud, they're the three teams that I see definitely getting really deep into the tournament. They were 3 of the top 4 as well. Sure. And I mean, Loud were one of the ones I was looking at. Maybe not my definite winner, but they smashed it. They didn't even, barely lost a map. Yeah,
I mean, they were that upper bracket run. We can kind of, I mean, we can start off in the groups as well. We'll take a little look. Yeah, I mean, with how things started in the groups, for them, it's kind of interesting enough, them being in the same group. That also kind of, like, when you look back at it, a bit of a chuckle there. But it was actually Optic who ended up winning in that upper bracket game. And you're like, okay, for me, that's why I think I got this innate bias. I was like, okay, well, surely, Optic, they've done it once. In the best of 5, they can do it again. But not the case. We'll start in Group A, though. Paper X, Edward Gaming, that first game. I know we have a few people who are big fans of Edward Gaming. It's unfortunate to see them go out kind of so early, in fact. Yeah. But I mean, it's a bit of a tough group, to be perfectly honest. But I guess the biggest talking point, realistically speaking, actually is Paper X dropping out.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing, right? Paper X, they were always. I really, really wanted them to do so well, and I think this tournament just had so much insane talent and they just kind of didn't get in a group that favored them, and it just wasn't the event for them, and that's just kind of how it works when you get randomly seeded groups. True. That does kind of suck. Yeah, I mean, even as well, it's kind of re-implementing that second place curse. Everyone talks about that. The second place curse. And Paper X again. Another team who fall into it. So you really kind of do feel for them. Also, I think that begs a couple of questions, which again we can talk about in a little bit more detail later, but about whether there's going to be changes coming there, because
Now, of course, with franchising and whatnot, there's an abundance of talent that kind of, Augurless, or not even Augurless, maybe I guess like non-franchised in a sense. So, especially kind of within APAC, I think that's a region that's been developing so quickly as of late that I think for Paper X, if they want to kind of pick up new talent, they could. It's just whether they want to even risk it, to be perfectly honest. Liquid, of course, they squeaked by that 2-1, making it through. Moving on towards Group B, of course, we already sort of mentioned it. Optic Loud. I don't think there was too much of a debate there. I don't think anyone was really too surprised at all with Group B. I think the only real surprise, I guess, to some people could have been Optic beating Loud 2-1. But all things considered, to be perfectly honest, those two making it through, I don't think anyone's massively that surprised about.
No, I don't think so whatsoever. The thing is, everything turned out kind of how we expected it. Maybe like there are a couple somewhat surprises, like Boom, maybe, but still Boom are a good team. Every team deserved to be there. I think that was the thing about it that kind of made it so. But it's so heartbreaking because at that point, so many teams, come together and they're so good it's like really good teams are going to get knocked out in the group stages. Really good teams are going to get knocked out in the playoffs. And it was dog eat dog. It really was.
And that's gonna, I think, to be fair to it, showing as well that there's no longer. I think when Valorant in its competitive nature started up, post beta, and you saw teams like Sense was just steamrolling everybody. You kind of got that. You got a slight worry whether it's going to be one of those games where you have one team at the top for a long, long time. These massive eras. Even in CS:GO, we get these huge eras, right? Astralis had like 4 majors in a row, for example. And you get kind of concerned that it's going to be like that, and it's going to be kind of a case of who can actually take down the Titan, who can beat them. But that's never really been the case for me with which is kind of refreshing. We've seen every single time there's a new champion coming through. There's new teams who keep taking down the best of the best. And again, pretty prime example here with Loud. They're the first side that's non-EMEA or NA, right? To win on a caliber tournament like this.
Yeah, the thing is with Valorant, it's always been marketed. It's right. It's going to be marketed largely towards an English-speaking audience to begin with. So there was always going to be this kind of head start that EMEA and NA did get, and that's just how it works when you've got a big audience, especially in NA, who has so many players. So it was always going to be a big kind of start for them. I'm glad before franchising came in, we got a winner outside of EMEA and NA, because I think that's really important into kind of keeping people interested in the game and keeping people wanting to see more and stuff like that. Because like Japan, for instance, has the biggest audience out of any region right now.
That's it, yeah.
And they are not having a good time so far. Zeta did really well in Masters, but overall they haven't kind of had the luck that they'd want. But that's the thing. You got to play to your audience, and sometimes so it's good to see Brazil win. It's good to see Brazil win.
It's one of those regions as well, Brazil. I mean, in a lot of games, that fan base is always dedicated. It doesn't matter what game it is. The Brazilians as a whole, they're so dedicated. Like, they are one of the more vocal fan bases. I said they're also kind of Group C as well. No surprises at all for me. Well, for me personally, I mean, this one went exactly kind of as planned. Xset, FBX making it through. No kind of if, buts, and maybes. Over towards kind of Group D. I think for me, the only thing that was the upset was Fnatic dropping into that lower bracket. I thought Fnatic would be the team that make it through the uppers, just because of what their previous results have been like coming in towards the tournament. They look so hot as well, especially coming out of the young talent they've got. I was like, okay, they'll be fine. Like they're gonna steamroll this. But I mean, the 100 Thieves game, that was actually, so for me, I was working on abroad on another gig at the same time, so I missed Groups A, B, and C. I couldn't watch any of it, but I could watch Group D, and the first game I watched was Fnatic 100 Thieves. I was like, okay, sick. Fnatic 2-0 or 2-1 maybe. It'd be fine. But I mean, to be fair to 100 Thieves, there was kind of that was not the 100 Thieves kind of that I expected coming into. They look very competent, or more competent. And a lot of those kind of rookie areas that we see them kind of pull into their game, the kind of the mistakes that's so costly, that seems to be so consistent of 100 Thieves, that it wasn't really present. They were lethal.
Yeah, I think a big part of the thing was that Fnatic picked Pearl immediately going into that one, and I think, the first game ever played of, not the first game ever played of Pearl, but the first game either of these two teams had played of Pearl, I assume they'd scrimmed it against each other maybe at some point before Champions, but either way, that's a really risky move to start off a series in the first game of the group stage. And I mean, 100 Thieves surprised everybody in that first game, and that it kind of went downhill from there for Fnatic. They won Bind, obviously, because it's Fnatic on Bind, and then in last map was I can't remember now, but 100 Thieves won that one pretty handily. So it was just like, Yeah, I mean, they kind of took a really big risk and it didn't work out for them.
Yeah, I mean, they got punished for it, and then of course,
Yeah.
it kind of when it came back to the cider game, there was no kind of fucking about. Then it was like, like let's see this out of the way. It kind of should be, and it was a pretty clean cut 2-0. All things. I think there was kind of moments as well where I thought 100 Thieves maybe could snag a map, but in the grand scheme it was fine. They made it through. DRX as well, because we didn't really mention them, but I mean, what a run from them as well. I mean, they're finishing third overall. I mean, they had a kind of a steamroll of a group, and then the same thing kind of for a lot of the kind of the playoffs as well, which I guess we can also move on to. The playoffs, they're pretty interesting start. DRX again, like I said, I mean, they had such a good run up until they met, well, what was the champions, right, of Loud, which is kind of, it's tough. I feel like if it wasn't Loud, they would have met there, and more or less nearly anybody else apart from Optic or Loud, I feel like they actually could have made a significantly deeper run.
Yeah, I think the thing was I was actually kind of expecting DRX to beat Optic in the lower finals as well, because like DRX looked on fire the whole time. Yes, they didn't win against Loud, but like they beat Fnatic, they beat FunPlus Phoenix 2-0. They look so good, and they're such a great team that deserved better than they got, I think. And the thing is, that just shows you how insane the top 3 and the top 4 kind of teams were, in that DRX can beat FunPlus Phoenix 2-0 and still lose 3-2 to Optic.
Yeah.
In the end, that's just the level of competition is just so insane.
I gotta say as well, coming into it, I know DRX is one of those sides that you always hear about just because of how dominant they are within their own scene. And domestically, they're a titan, right? Especially kind of even within APAC, they're such a dominant force. But I think coming in towards it, I would have lent in favor of a team like FBX, to be honest, to kind of be snagging that third place. So when you get to the quarterfinals, first game of the quarters, and you just see them get rolled, you're like, okay, hang on a second. So that was like a massive shock for me, kind of seeing them. But then I gotta say, DRX's playstyle as well, it's so different to what you see within EMEA and even NA as well, especially because you see a lot more kind of a slower playstyle, especially kind of with those European sides. They're significantly slower. It's just DRX. It's just a shit show, but a perfect shit show as well.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing, right? Korea's always been really weird in that they've always just gone the opposite of what everybody else does. Because I remember last year they were just insanely quick. They would go straight out of the gates with a jet and just try and kill everybody in the first 5 seconds, whether they were on defense or attack. And now Korea is incredibly slow compared to the rest of the field, and they play really methodically, and then they do hard pushes towards the ends of rounds, and that's just complete. They just love to deny the meta. They love it. They love it. It's insane.
They kind of thrive in that chaos as well. That's what I feel like it's for me. Like you mentioned, like the perfect thing of kind of how for them it's all about last 20 seconds making an execute. Even a retake as well. They leave it down to like the last finest margins, which I also think cost them quite a bit. I mean, we saw with that Optic game. There's a lot of times where they go for like a retake, but there'd be like 25 seconds left on the clock for them to make anything work of it. Or same for an execute as well. And all it takes is kind of one little moment of brilliance. Yay stepping up for a 3K or something of those lines, and they denied everything. And I think that's where kind of those mistakes crept into DRX. I feel like if they can, I don't want to say pull the trigger earlier, because obviously that's not their play style, but got to be a few fine tunings here, maybe especially on an opponent by opponent basis. But they could make definitely even a push for a finals in the future, just because of how well they play there. The only thing is you can hope now with franchising that they are a side who can continue to be very successful. Who knows? Yeah,
I mean, I'm hoping they get more competition within their own regions now, because obviously Korea has not really been an insanely competitive region in and of itself. DRX have always just kind of stopped them, moved on to international competition, and then faced a completely different side of opponents. Now hopefully with the Pacific region in International League, they can kind of get a better grip on actually having good opponents to not just to play against day to day before they head to potentially head to a Masters event. Who even knows if they will, now that there's better competition.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing that you do get concerned about, is because obviously we don't really know too much in terms of the fine tunes and the details of kind of what things are going to look like, and we'll talk about kind of the majority of those later. But as you mentioned, you do get worried because I mean APAC generally speaking has less of kind of that level of talent across the entire board, where if you compare it towards EMEA, there's a lot of teams you can slot in at that sort of similar level. So you do get worried that if they just continuously the dominant force in their region, and continuously the only teams that they got kind of within nearby Zeta division, I guess you could say, they're going to struggle, where they'll kind of limit themselves in a way, in terms of they won't be able to improve because their scrims will be very similar, or a lot of their scrims will be so dominant. You see that quite a lot, especially in other games as well. I think like Australia gets absolutely shafted by that as well, because because of ping, right? They can they can barely scrim anyone, to be perfectly honest, unless there's going to be a massive disadvantage either to themselves or to their opponents.
Yeah, that's a good thing about obviously the international leagues is now we have the money and the backing to bring everybody together for everything. So there's never going to be that problem within Tier 1 again. Because especially with EMEA, like there was always going to be this problem. I remember last year where I can't remember what region. I think Turkey it was that had a lot of internet outages through Riot. They had trouble connecting to Riot servers. During officials, like to be qualified for, like, I think it was during the last chance qualifiers and stuff like that. And it's just like that's an unfortunate side effect of a place like EMEA where you've got so many different regions across such a large space, and even with NA where teams have to move to Texas to play properly, which is just and that having to be on the org's backing is really unfortunate. So now that Riot is now going to be kind of making that happen instead of just the orgs doing it off their own pocket.
Exactly.
That's a good thing.
Especially when you kind of, even just the comparison of kind of West Coast to East Coast in NA. I mean, like, the massive differences between ping. I know it's been, huge problems, especially kind of when COVID was pretty rampant. You kind of, that was obviously the big issue, is either, do you relocate off the back of the orgs funding an entire team to, like, Dallas, for example, which seems to be pretty common. A lot of teams seem to, Dallas seems to be kind of the epicenter of NA. Yeah, for pretty much every game as well. But obviously it's so expensive. Obviously, this is the kind of the cool thing now with franchising that shouldn't be a problem. Hopefully, we'll have to wait and see. The way we'll move on, of course, to the finals. I mean, that was kind of lots to be said about that.
Yeah.
3-1 overall. Okay, I mean, initial thoughts from yourself?
I mean, I think it was just more of the same from Loud. I think Optic did a lot of VOD reviewing, and they really which is saying something for Optic, because generally NA teams are less to do with VOD reviewing, they're more to do with kind of their own, skill and individual prowess. So it's something to say that they did look like they were more prepared for those games, and even the games that Loud won, I think first map was definitely Ascent, and it was 15-13 if I remember right.
Yeah, it was
such a close game to start things off. And Bind, where Loud had absolutely dismantled Optic on their previous game in the upper semi-finals, where Optic had really never lost Bind before, and Loud had somehow won that one. Optic came back massively, 6-13, right, and just tore them apart as per usual, which was great from Optic. It looked like they actually learnt from their mistakes.
That's for sure.
Came back and did win against them, but in the end, Loud just the better team. I think they have such good players. Sassy, Aspas, Les was insane that whole series.
Yeah, I mean, Les had an absolute steamroll. I think Aspas as well. I mean, he was such a, obviously, it's so easy to, we always say this, as analysts, it's so easy to highlight duelists because obviously, the stats wise and all that, they're always fully ahead. But I mean, the stuff he was doing in the server was just ridiculous, especially in that final as well. There was like so many opportunities where, it kind of relied on him to find success, a couple of kills here or there, but most importantly, like, finding space. And it was so good at it. He really kind of toyed with Optic quite well. And to be fair to Optic, 2 out of the 4 maps were into OT, so it wasn't like by any means, even though the scoreline overall is 3-1 in favor of Loud. It looks clean cut, but in the survey it wasn't the case. And as you mentioned, kind of with Bind, but because of how one-sided it was, it showed that Optic, I think for me, it showed that on the flip side when they played the first time out and it was that pick of Bind, that was an off day for Optic rather than like kind of this new change for Loud, because when they got their second shot and they were definitely kind of found their form. I think for me, Optic were pretty slow starting, especially in the groups. They weren't like the normal dominant Optic that they was. And I think that also kind of came out to play in the finals. They started just, classic Optic, a little bit slow. They were like, not really awake. I think they're always one of those teams that take a little while to get into it. I feel like they have to feel the pressure as well. That always seems to be Optic. They always have to have like their backs against the wall before, we see some of these guys, FNS, for example, start to pop off. But yeah, unfortunately, I think it was like too little too late. And Loud, credit to them. I was watching the game with a mate and I was saying, I think, Optic should take this. I'd be very surprised if it goes 5 maps. If it goes all the whole way to Icebox, I'd be very surprised. I think Optic will take this. And I was putting my place. So like, fair play to Loud. I think they're it's kind of deserving as well. Of arguably, I don't think it's even arguably. I think it's the biggest org in like all of the Americas in terms of like the stats they get and like social media and stuff like that. I mean, their fan base is ridiculous. It's insanely big. So credit to them, like massively deserved. So now you kind of hope as well that this is a side going into 2023 that can continue the form, because that's been the story, hasn't it? It's like, a side will win, a Masters or Champions or whatever, and then they'll drop off straight away afterwards.
Right. They made their case towards heading into next year that, you know, the NA is not going to have the run of the mill. They're not going to have, you know, they're not going to be able to do whatever they want with the whole league. Now, I think it's five NA teams are in the are in the Americas League. So I think they made a good case for getting, I think, 3 for Brazil, 2 for Latin America. Yeah. So they made their case for getting their slots in, and like that. It's going to be so good. I think it's just going to be so good to see these 3 regions up against each other in such a, you know, in a league where they can properly play against each other on level ground all year round. Is going to be so awesome to see. And the rivalry between Brazil and NA is going to be so fun to watch on social media. It is going to be so fun to watch.
It's so vocal, isn't it, right? So kind of, I mean, you know, so you see NA and EU have kind of these massive vocal rivalries, which we all obviously saw as well with EMEA not making it in into kind of the top 3. So that was kind of the big thing. It was like, you know, not top 3, because obviously FPX ended up finishing 4th overall. So that was obviously we got a lot of stick for the desk as well. We got a lot of stick. I know Mimi was had like her chance and stuff. So we got a lot of stick. Sort of deserved, I guess, in a way. I think for FPX, I would have wanted them to at least get a 3rd place overall. I would have expected them to get a 3rd place overall. Didn't happen. So, you know, concerning. But hey ho, I mean, you wonder what's gonna happen next year, and that's also kind of where you wonder about kind of Optic as a roster, right? But you know, we'll kind of we'll touch on in more detail. We're kind of when we have our little special segment later. But of course, the biggest talking point realistically coming off the back of this is that the second best team in this tournament, and arguably the best team in the world, aren't going to be a team anymore. So very, very interesting. The best player in the world doesn't have a team. Yeah. I mean, that's spicy. I'm a fan.
That's fun. Yeah. No, I'm interested to see how that one works out. As we said, it's currently the 23rd, Friday the 23rd, and we don't know anything yet, and we probably won't for a good few weeks to come. So that should be fun.
Yeah, Ye's DMs are on fire right now. It is what we know.
My guy's agent is dying right now.
He's having a tough time. No sleep as well. Every region's asking for him. So he's having a busy time as well. There's definitely kind of realms of possibilities where Ye even makes a move to EMEA. I know he's expressed the interest in it. So I don't know. We could have interesting times. We'll kind of touch on it in some more detail later. I think a pretty good thing to talk about kind of following that, though, is one of the things that did happen during the tournament. It's the big controversy. Do you want to lead us in with this one? Of course, I saw you did a little tweet about it, but the big controversy, FPX Xset.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so in case you didn't see it, it was FPX versus Xset. Yeah, let's get the clip up. Right. So this bug has been in the game since beta. Your turret, especially on Ascent, I see it so much on Ascent, your turret will shoot at something that does not exist. Like, there's no player there. It will suddenly... And a lot of the time this happens because you peek too quickly. You do a shoulder peek, the turret sees you, and then it gets confused when you get back around the wall.
It's that peek to heaven.
It's shooting at heaven.
The's no one there, for context.
Exactly. That puts off. I think it was Def was the one that was negatively impacted by that the most.
Yes,
He started looking towards heaven, and that's what can you say? It's a bug that has been in the game for a long time, has not been fixed, and it did negatively affect Xset. It's not like FPX did it on purpose. So what do you do in that situation? And Riot did in the end want to replay this last round after both teams had left the venue at that point. Yeah. And somehow it was not communicated to FPX that Xset did not call for this. Riot themselves, VOD reviewed it. They went, okay, we want to do this again. They went to each team individually and said, hey, we're going to replay this last round of the series. And FPX did not get the memo that Xset did not call for this one, did not want to, push for that.
Yeah.
And so there was animosity between the two teams, obviously. Yeah. Obviously.
I think without the communication, that's the big thing, right? Because it wasn't communicated properly, immediately if you're FPX, you're like, well, fuck these Xset guys. Like, this is not our fault, not your fault. Like, this is just the game, basically. So there's definitely, you can see kind of where the arguments came about. I think that should have been the first thing cleared. Before even talking through what happened and why it happened, whatever, just be like, this is admin's call. This is Riot's call. This isn't, you know, this isn't Xset or FPX's call. This is, you know.
They should have got the two teams together and said, okay, look, here's what we have determined based off of this. And it's nobody but Riot's fault in every facet of it. It is a Riot bug in a Riot game. They remade this last one. Yeah, exactly. In a Riot call. And somehow the blame fell on the Xset players for some reason, even though they had nothing to do with it. And it's just wild to me that you could let that happen, because your commitment has to be to the safety of the players. And the amount of shit they got on Twitter, the amount of I heard apparently in the, you know, like post-match after the second match, after, you know, when they were shaking hands, apparently there was some animosity between the players from the FPX players, and that's relatively understandable, but that should not have been a problem to begin with.
No, and you do kind of a couple of questions that I have to be asked about kind of how it was handled, and even you know, if anyone was, bear in mind as well, this was like 1 a.m. our time. I remember this was late, and 2 a.m. in Europe, and I think in Turkey are they 2 hours ahead? If I'm right in saying?
Yeah, it would have been. I think the game ended at about 3 a.m. there. Yeah.
Jesus, yeah. So you got like, this is like super late, and kind of like already you get kind of. For me, it was kind of, I was asking the questions because, you know, Twitter was meltdown at the time, right? So everyone was kind of talking about kind of you know, Xset was getting slandered left, right, and center, and even the players were coming out on Twitter and be like, we didn't ask for this, like, you know, we didn't, but you do get, you kind of, for me, it's like I beg the question in my head, it's like, what would have happened if this was like 6 p.m. and it's like everyone's watching, because not everyone's watching then, you know, not everyone was online. A couple of the funny things that happened with it as well, obviously, because the bug happened and then the game ended, right? There we go. Done and dusted. And then I know apparently the Turkish casters just went home because obviously game done. Yeah. Good night. Off they pop. The crowd went home as well.
There was barely anybody left in the crowd by the end. If you heard the cheers at the end of the game, it was just like,
oh, it's funny. Yeah. We'll scroll through as well, see. So this was, it was, this is what you said, right? It's been in the game for such a long time. This is like the best way to put it. This bug has been in the game since what? I think someone was telling me it's been in the game since essentially when Killyjoy was kind of brought into the game as a character, right? So the fact that it's more or less always been there since, you know, Killjoy's inception. I think for me, I don't know what your views on it. The call to kind of replay, I don't know. It's sort of weird. It's kind of like you got two sides of the story here. Obviously, it's a bug. It shouldn't happen. But if it shouldn't happen, why has it not been fixed? Yeah. And it's been like a year and a bit or whatever. So it's like, right. Obviously, it's been in the game for a long, long time. You haven't fixed it. You've got to deal with this. This is what happens, right? Like, you've got to deal with it. But they don't. I don't know. It's very weird. Do you think the call to replay the round was the right one? Because I know on stream as well. Because obviously, you also stayed up for it as well. But we were both up. The stream restarted to the desk like 3 times because that's how much of like a mess it was. Essentially, it was like, you know, it went to the desk and the desk was like, okay, cool. We're sorting something out. See you after the break. Come back from the break. Like, hey, we're back. This is what's happened. And then even the desk would get to the point where like, we don't know. We're gonna talk. Like, so credit to them. They were filling endless air more or less. So I mean, credit to the people on the desk as well. I think it was like Yinsu as well. And I mean, credit to them.
I know Tom was Tom there. Somebody was falling asleep on the desk. I can't remember. I think it was Tom. Yeah.
And it was Hypok and Pansy, wasn't it?
Yeah, Hypok and Pansy were casting. Pansy sounded like she was losing her mind, slowly going insane. But the thing is, right, I think it's the same thing as, do you remember, what teams was it? I think it was definitely a Brazilian team. I can't remember who, Vivo Keyed versus somebody in one of the Masters events, and there was a Cypher Cam. Yes. But that was actually the fault of Vivo Keyed. They put up an illegal Cypher Cam.
Yeah.
This one completely different. I tried to, like, in my head, I tried to kind of liken it to a real sport event. What would happen if, like, you know, a person from the crowd came onto the pitch and blocked a football from going into the goal or something like that? And what would actually happen then? They would replay it. That is fair. But not after the game's ended, not after everybody's left the arena, not after people have gone to sleep. 3 a.m., well, 2 a.m. when it restarted the game. It's unfair to the players. It's unfair to the people working on the event. It's unfair to everyone. And it's your fault, right? It is your fault. You did not fix the bug. We've been calling for this bug to be fixed for a long time. I remember people posting about this for ages. So I don't know. I don't think it should have been replayed after the game had ended.
Yeah, a pretty good tweet here by Ryan as well. If this is the president going forward with bugs happening in important tournaments, it's now in Riot's kind of best interest to fix literally every bug in the game. Which I don't think. I know that's a huge ask, all things considered, but it's kind of, you know, you can even start with the ones that everyone's been very vocal about. Chaos Knife Glitch, which of course he mentions, the turret bug. I mean, they've been in the game for so long, right? So there's been a lot of these things. So yeah, the turret bug's now been in the game since beta, and he's fixing ASAP along with the Chaos Knife Glitch, another classic one as well. And he follows up like, I get Riot replaying the round. Honestly, it's in their rules and it's the right call, but it's opened a big can of worms. And I think he's absolutely spot on. Like, it has opened this kind of worms, and it's also opened this sort of precedent as well going forward, where if there's ever any bug, there's always now I guess a backing to be like, okay, replay it. And then this like I think there needs to become a point where kind of I guess Riot come out and they're like, okay, this is what we're doing in terms of bugs going forward, and then they just need to stick with it, like under every circumstance, every scenario. But they haven't been very communicative about it. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, you know, it still feels like it's a coin flip on the day more than kind of, you know, this is what they do. I know obviously the rule books say if there's this bug, you know, replay it, but realistically, first of all, there shouldn't be the bugs. They should be fixed because especially because everyone's been talking about it for a long time. But on top of that as well, it just opens this can of worms. Like Ryan mentions, the potential of having a lot of longer days, because it was like at one point a bug. And I saw a couple of the NA guys. I can't remember the exact game they were referencing to. There was a kind of a few other bugs that happened, and they were like, "Oh well, let's replay them then." And I know that became like a bit of a meme for the few days. And here's of course what Sicko said as well. He was kind of saying, you know, we never asked to do this, but I think unfortunately for them it was too late. And I think that's the unfortunate thing for Sicko. You know, they never asked for this to happen, and they still got so much flack. And you know,
they didn't even win, and they still got that much. Yeah.
And if you check any of their Twitters, I'm sure it's probably the same across other social medias as well. Like, it wasn't a pretty time in their comments, and it was completely out of their control. So I mean, that's a rough day, all things considered, because not only are they just getting like verbally abused basically by like people who aren't really in the clue, and they lost as well. And to be fair, it did go to OT. It was actually it was very spicy.
They won the round.
Yeah, it was very, very spicy. Yeah, second time. Second time asking went to OT, and I think you could definitely tell as well. Pansy and IPOC, they were so tired. They were like, "Oh, no." Like they like cursed, but they didn't even win overall, and they still got kind of a lot of flack. And I think you were spot on, right? Like, the priority has to be protecting the players in the future, and I don't know, that wasn't the case on the day. It was messy. It was messy.
Really unfortunate. Yeah, I do really feel for the players, because that was out of their control in every way. They didn't have any way to display that they didn't call for this before the game started. You know, obviously they were in the game. They needed to focus and get that done. And all the while, their DMs, their replies are being blown up by hateful, you know, fans from all around the world. And plus, the other team is starting to really resent them as they're on that server playing against them. You could see some of their reactions after the game as well. You know, the camera would pan to, I think first maybe Zipan or something like that, and he just went like this. Yeah. And then, like, it was just not a good time for anyone involved, and that is not acceptable for Riot, I don't think. It is not okay for you to let the flak fall onto people who aren't involved in your decisions whatsoever.
Yeah, I think even you could. I know some people making I saw on Twitter some people making the argument of kind of, I know, it was like unprofessional from FBX, but I think you also got to factor in the other side of things. Like, it was like 3 a.m. or 3 a.m. when it finished in the arena. Yep. It was a brutal long day, and you can even see as well in the tech pause when they were kind of resetting the game, which took a long time for kind of the sort of the match medic to get played out there and kind of reset everything. They were like sleeping in their chair and stuff. They like leant it back and they were like passed out. So I don't blame them at all. It was so late, and credit as well to also people who stayed in the arena. Like, it was like 3 a.m.
Yeah, there were definitely some people still there, which is just wild to me.
Yeah, I mean, as much as like I would have loved to have been in the arena, staying to 3 a.m. You're not catching me there by any means. We can swiftly move on, of course, to what is kind of the somewhat bigger news at the moment, which is roster moves. This is kind of the big talking point. We'll discuss kind of generally speaking franchising in a little bit more detail later, but roster moves at the moment it's Rostermania. I mean, this is the big thing at the moment. It feels more or less impossible to call as well right now.
Yeah, I like. Obviously, there are teams that have been. This is just how it is. There are 30 teams allowed in the world, and you know, for each region there can only be 10 of them. And there's always going to be teams that have a great standing, that have great financial backing, that have amazing players. Not that the players are anything to do with the decision, that are going to get, fucked over by the whole system. And that's the case with Optic. That's the case with Xset. That's the case with so many of these version 1. Teams in EMEA as well. Obviously, some tier 1 teams that didn't get in because EMEA is such a diverse region that was always going to happen. Yeah, G2. Although I feel like there may be another reason why that one happened, because Riot did say, we want teams that align with our views, and it's like Riot is currently going through a very big time of trying to rebrand themselves as a very progressive company and everything like that. So you do that on the week that teams get selected, probably not the best idea, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was quite a few errors made by the organization there. I mean, obviously we don't really know, for sure, and I guess that's where when we have our special guest on later, we can obviously we can quiz about that. But that is the big thing that a lot of people are asking: is that the reason? Because I think prior to that, you've kind of even seen the likes of George Geddes, Bodork, I want all saying stuff about kind of how G2 are more or less a shoe-in. Even if it wasn't EMEA, there was always the rumors about them going over towards NA and being one of those teams based over there. So I think they fumbled the bag is probably the best way to put it. Of course, we can Brent did a tweet. Of course, the roster lock is October 15th. The deadline got posted, of course, for 2023. Roster lock's October 15th. The 6 players minimum by this point and a coach. So it's pretty soon. That's
not a lot of time to put together a full
team.
Especially for teams like, you think like NRG, you think like Evil Geniuses that don't have a tier 1 ready team right now. They do not have anything. Do we just take Optic? Do we just fucking just grab them all and take them with us? Because that's what I'm thinking at the moment, is that some of these teams are just going to have to bung together a barely ready team, and it's not going to be a good look for them.
It's going to be a tough watch.
Starts.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm focused on. Because obviously, all the teams that were already huge orgs who have got through franchising, and they've already got tier 1 teams. I don't really I'm not even too interested in what they're going to do, because at the very most what they're going to do is maybe an upgrade or 2 here or there. Potentially one of the big names that didn't get through franchising gets picked up. But I'm more interested in, like you said, your EGs, for example, who just don't have a tier 1 team.
They don't have a team. So, they don't have anything.
Yeah, they don't have anything. So it's like, for this side, it's like they are starting from fresh and they've got 3 weeks. Yeah, lads, good luck.
That isn't... their talent management in Evil Geniuses, in NRG, in EMEA, there's Koi and Vitality. Well, Vitality have a good team, but I don't think it's a tier 1 ready.
It's not tier 1. No. Yeah, I mean they lost
so
in
many in EMEA, because the thing is, all of the teams that are tier 1 right now pretty much are from the UK and Scandinavia, pretty much. In that you got Team Liquid, Team Fnatic, who are both based around this area of EMEA, and you don't have a lot of teams that are tier 1 ready and also diverse around, because we want French teams, we want Spanish teams, we want DAC teams, we want Turkish teams and stuff like that. So we have so many teams right now that do not have a roster that is ready to play up against Fnatic and Team Liquid, especially when you think that they're going to have the same amount of time to improve their rosters even further if they want to. Fnatic have dropped Mystic, I think it was.
Yes,
And they're probably going to be picking up somebody, maybe Ye, who knows? They could be picking up Ye. And when you think about that, these teams have such an advantage in that they already have a competitive team, and they have the same amount of time as all of these other people, that they have to build a full roster. We only have to just make ours good.
Yes.
That is it.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other ones that you mentioned that's very interesting is Vitality, because, I mean, they don't have a tier 1 team. They didn't even make it through VRL. They didn't win VRL. They didn't win VRL.
Second in front.
Lost in the finals, right? So they lost the foot. So, yeah, I mean, there's already then a pretty decent example of kind of where you start to ask a couple of questions about, okay, well, now what's the step for those sort of sides? Because I mean, there's a lot of talent in that roster, but I think if they want to be competitive, they honestly have to start fresh. They have to start from the bare bones.
They right now have, at best, a mid-table team right now. They would not be able to consistently beat the likes of Team Liquid and Team Fnatic. Could they put up a good performance against them? Yes, I'm sure they could. They have some great players. They have Hyber, Natank, although Natank is not playing with them anymore. I think he's searching for other options. they have incredible talent.
G,
It's just,
Sender, those guys. Yeah.
It's just, do they have a team that will consistently be able to push for a title in EMEA? No, they won't.
We got a lot of the free agents as well. I mean, there's some huge names. We'll start at the top. Fnatic, the guys who are, restricted or unrestricted free agents right now. Bodork, Alpha, Soulcast, Scream, Yampi, Navera, Dima. I mean, there's so many huge names there. Obviously, the Vitality boys that we mentioned, the Tong, Badajibo, and Cole Sender. All very decent players as well in their own regard. And even, KC, Giants, Heretics. I mean, there's a lot of big names here who are essentially, even the Foot guys, right? These guys have just won VRL. I mean, Kiwi. Apparently that's how you pronounce it. I was saying Q1 for a while, but apparently it's Kiwi. But he's a god. Like, he's so good. I'd happily say that Kiwi can play tier 1 and be comfortable in it. And even the rest of them, Cracks, I think, at times is unbelievably good. So I mean, there's Foot side of a lot of talent, but they're technically in the same boat. All of Koi. Basically, there's a lot. You mentioned Mystic as well from Fnatic. That's a huge one. Foxy, of course, we've seen him play with Polaris. What we're saying is there is so many free agents now, but God, if you're a GM trying to figure out who you pick up, where you take them,
job
my God,
right there.
Yeah, all of the XL boys they're best in Polaris. They're guaranteed basically to go to VRL. More, it seems like at the moment they're guaranteed because Alliance are no longer competent. Well, I mean, they're basically the only decent team from Polaris at the moment, or who are consistently decent anyway. We'll have to wait and see, of course, towards January. Me and you will probably both be on it, but
challengers, hopefully.
Yeah, true that. Yeah. But I mean,
at that point,
the XL roster, the talent is, Chihuahua, in my eyes, comfortably. Patstak as well, both of them. Yeah. Even Alive, I'd even put Alive. Those three for damn sure compared to tier 1. But it's a question of, do you pick them as a 3? Do they go in their own way separately? Which I'm probably assuming is what actually is going to happen. Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole idea is that you can see that even obviously they were going to make the Fnatic and Team Liquid players restricted free agents anyway.
Yeah, of course.
Because you want to open up your options, and the players also want to open up their options moving. And obviously they want contract negotiations because contracts are going to be a lot bigger and a lot more important as we move to a partnership league. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Because the job for Fnatic's team management is fine. It's we can pick up some great players and try and build something, but in the end we have a safety net to fall back on. We have an already very good team. We don't know kind of what the quality of the league is going to be like, but we have a very good team already. We don't have to worry too much. But for teams like BBL is all right, but Koi, Heretics, Foot. I mean, all of these teams are going to have such a difficult time. They have so many free agents to pick from. There's the whole of Mech still. There's a whole of Ascend still.
Ascend. I got a feel for Link as well, by the way. Yeah. Link leaves Liquid to Ascend, only for them to not make it through franchising. While Liquid does make it through, you do got a feel for him. I guess there's the other thing as well of obviously with Optic, but from what we've seen on Twitter and kind of what the rumors are that are coming from kind of the top journalists, like George and Bodork and whatnot, generally most of the people at DOT, it's seeming like they're going to split up, which is really unfortunate because, I mean, even though they didn't win, I'd still say they are the best side in the world, or definitely the best player in the world of Yay. So, I mean, it's a tough scenario for them as a team because they made so much progress. I think as well with Optic, it's been such a kind of a lovely kind of fairy tale story as well because these guys are kind of mixed match from all over, came together, started slow, and then just became progressively so dominant. And then just when they're reaching kind of a period of maybe even starting their era in a sense, top 2s back to back, obviously winning 1 second. At the next, basically on the road to being so good, and they have to split up. So, but I guess it is exciting for us as neutrals in a sense because it opens a door for some really cool transfers coming through. It's just a question of kind of who it is, basically. Yeah,
I mean that's the thing, right? There are 2 routes that you can go down with that one. In the Optic was a team that came up from the ground up. They were so good now, and they missed out on their chance. And then there's Sentinels, who started out really good and then just brought in a bunch of content creators and got franchising. So feels good for them, obviously. But they were never going to keep us. But there's so much talent in NA. Not even just EMEA has so much talent. NA has an insane amount because there's the Guard, there's Xset, there's Optic, there's a couple of Cloud9 players now that are free agents. There's a couple from TSM that are really good. Knights were a really competitive team at one point. There'll be some players from there. Baby J from 100 Thieves. Some people from a crew, Ghost. There's so many good teams that are looking at kind of getting up into that one. And I think there's going to be, no matter what, there's going to be a lot of swapping around in the tier 1 scene as well. So I don't think we're going to see any of the same teams anymore. I think what you know as Fnatic, what you know as Sentinels, what you know as any of this will not exist anymore. I think maybe they keep a couple players. Some of the best teams might keep a couple. But apart from that, I think everything is going to be... You're going to want to follow players to teams, not follow teams at this 100%. Point. Because a lot of people have this emotional connection to like Optic and stuff like that. And they're like, Optic should have got in. Optic, blah, 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 blah. No, that's nothing to do with the players. Exactly. Nothing to do with the players. You can't think of it like that because it's all to do with the financial kind of, what Riot think is the best investment. Yeah.
Are the orgs competent? Are they, in some cases like G2, are they, not going to be a brand risk, basically?
Yeah, exactly. So
there's a
big part.
There's so many sort of like, I mean, that was the big thing. It was like, oh my god, how is quote unquote the best team in the world not made franchising? But it's not about the team. It's the
team will make franchising.
Yeah, the team. Every single one of those players.
In no world is Ye not going to make franchising.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised at the end of this if Ye isn't the highest paid player in the world.
Oh yeah,
because
easily.
The bidding war that is probably already started, we just haven't heard about it yet, for Ye is going to be ridiculous. I mean, like, the contracts that are going to be offered to him, people are going to be putting on a blank check and be like, sign it, mate. Like,
do you remember when it was tens, obviously, from Cloud9 to Sentinels, and it was like the buyout clause of like millions. Mm-hmm. That is not going to... It's going to be... You're going to see some numbers come up on like George Geddes' Twitter that will blow your mind. Yeah. I can bet you that.
I think people... will then get really surprised even if they see into the tens of millions or for a long-term contract. But like, that's ridiculous. But like, in the grand scheme of things, it's not because of the money that's been invested into this league, like how it works in terms of what the return's going to be like. And obviously the whole thing with the franchising, again, like we said, we'll talk about it in some more detail. It is the fact that there is kind of how Riot have kind of expressed themselves to these orgs and stuff. Is this guarantee of like the money that's coming through and the exposure and everything that comes along with it. So basically, they know what money they can expect if all goes to plan, which it should, because I mean, Riot don't really mess up this franchise. They've done it before, so it's not really an issue for them. They've done it with League, so they know how to make it run. Of course, this is just the same thing, but just on a much bigger scale, basically, of a lot more tournaments, a lot more. It seems like a lot more of a competitive nature in that sense, but they already know what sort of money they're going to be getting in on a year-on-year basis, and in a long-term stand, I guess. So they can afford to put down stupid money for certain players, and that's what you got to say for Ye as well. You'd be very surprised if you don't see kind of the I guess the contract for him or whatever just being ridiculous. I don't actually really know, of course, with him of Optic not making it. I don't really know what the buyout's going to be like. So I'm assuming, obviously, of Optic not making it, they'd obviously want to get some money back for him, but I can't see the buyout being egregious because the
buyout won't be it'll be the salaries that we're seeing, because as far as we know, there are no salary caps just yet. We don't know what the idea behind that one is yet. Nothing has been leaked, so I don't know if there is a salary cap just yet. Maybe there will be at some point.
One. Does League have a salary? Yeah, it does, right? Yeah.
League has a salary cap, Most of these will, but it's whether Riot can get that in before teams start to offer. And the thing is, as well, a salary cap is all good, but then when you start adding bonuses onto things, that's when things get really interesting, and it's like suddenly, salary caps don't really matter. There's no actual
ways around it,
there are very I think Ye is going to get a contract with a lot of numbers on it, no matter what.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if some of these... I mean, you got to realize, especially these NA orgs, the money that they have. I don't think people actually genuinely understand how much money they have. Like, some of them can actually just put down blank checks and be like, sign it. Like, we'll make it work. We can accommodate it. I've got it up on sort of screen now, but I'm interested in APAC. I think APAC is something that a lot of people haven't really spoken about in too much detail. But there's a lot of question marks that come around here of kind of what their way forward is. Of course, there's sort of a few that maybe potentially... I know some people were kind of not questioning. They were kind of more along the lines of... sort of, surprised to see them. Talon was one of them. Detonation, I guess. I saw some people kind of like, who, even Team Secret. I think, for a while they kind of gone away out of notoriety, but they are a humongous org. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes made over there. We even spoke about it earlier with Paper X, right? Them dropping out 9th to 12th in Champions. In my eyes, surely something has to change because they're not going to be comfortable with a 9th 12th, especially because that more or less cements them as not being competitive in their own region.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of thinking about what's going to happen here. So there has been a lot of players that have gone through the system in different parts of that region, and now that it's just kind of APAC, and you don't really need to worry about, do we want a full Malaysian team? Do we want a full Singaporean team? Do we want a full Japanese team? Whatever. It's going to be really interesting to see what kind of mixes people are going to come up with and what kind of what's going to go on there, because some of the best teams I've seen have been teams that speak like four different languages coming through APAC, and that should be interesting. I want to see what kind of, because that's where it's going to be a thing, right? Because it's going to be very difficult to create a really world star like Singaporean team,
of course,
because there's not a lot of people in Singapore, and there's that's just how it kind of works. It's difficult to do that, but you get some Singaporean players, some Malaysian players, some Philippines players together. There could be some really super teams out there that we haven't even had the chance to think about yet.
Yeah, and that's I think APAC generally for a long time was sort of slept on, especially when COVID was still a big thing. We would always kind of hear whims about them just farming over in their own region, but then we didn't really like see too much outside of it. But there's a lot of talent there. Basically, also you got to realize how many people. It just is so many to choose from. The player base is ridiculous. I think when you see the numbers of the player base in sort of APAC and that kind of thing, it's sort of insane numbers being put up on just a regular basis as well. Especially where some other games are dying as well to a degree. Overwatch no longer has a big stronghold on the player base, even to a degree kind of Dota and League. They're still massively popular, of course, but people have now seen Valorant, seen how successful it is, seen how there's these massive opportunities as well. There's a world of possibility where we see these names come through as well that we never heard of before. So that's the interesting thing to me. We'll have to wait and see. It basically it's pure speculation right now, but in the grand scheme of things, as of the day of recording, it's Friday the 23rd. There's 3 weeks, more or less, until they have to lock it. October 15th. That is wild. So all we can do is wait and see. We'll have, of course, we'll work out a little bit more of a detailed discussion along the lines of franchising with our lovely special guest in a little bit. Before we get on to speaking to our guest, we've got a couple of things to bring up. One being, of course, I guess, big things. There is a new agent creeping in, Senor Twiggy. Do you want to give us the rundown? We'll start off with Valorant Intel's kind of tweets.
Yeah. So it looks like so far we've got a new agent. They haven't released anything yet, but in the kind of source files, it does seem like they're going to be called Mage, or that's the working title for them so far. We'll see what they're actually called in the end. But some leaks about. Oh, that's not even a leak. That was just a teaser about what we're going to expect from it. And there's a lot of Indian kind of stuff going on here. You can see an Indian drink. I can't. Some kind of
this is
tea.
An Indian pencil. I saw them say this here.
There's a samosa in the side of the image. There's a bridge that apparently is in India. So lots of stuff. So lots of stuff to suggest this. Oh yeah, and obviously the map of India and Sri Lanka over there is pretty big one. Pretty big one on the book. Huge drawing. Huge cut out of the map. But yes, so it seems like it's going to be an Indian agent, which is good because there is a massive Indian audience for Valorant, like a massive one, like way more than I had expected at any point before now. And obviously, to complement that, we have some leaks on their abilities. Lovely, seems to be water based.
Yes, So it's like sort of water based Indian, and this is kind of the four mass abilities that. So Vision Taker, Tartarus Pit, Bubble, and Golem. Sort of quite interesting. The very scuffed in terms of what I can read here, but it's I don't know. Water based is definitely the way to put it. It's interesting to see what we kind of get from it. To be perfectly honest, also another one here that I'll take a look. I'll open this one up.
Yeah, it just came out literally 13 minutes ago. Seems like they're going to be changing up some agents.
Here we go. I guess we can move on to this momentarily. Just the last thing with this. These are kind of what we've got so far from Mage. More or less. It's very, very early doors. Obviously, by the time this gets released, which will be on Tuesday the whatever, 28th, something like that. Who knows? We could have more information by then. But as of the 23rd, this is kind of all we've got. And yeah, it should be quite interesting. I'm kind of, as you mentioned, I'm glad to see that we do have some info, and also we have kind of some representation, because as you mentioned, it's a ginormous player base for Valorant, and one in which I think could potentially be quite good to see in terms of that they get the representation, but also as well, you do get worried because whenever there's new agents get released, there's always something broken about them. So I'm just wondering to see what we see from it. But yeah, the golem as well was quite interesting. It was like, obviously it's like there's like this doll you throw down is what it says. It's like the buffs that you get with it, and then the decay the other way. I mean, who knows? That could be slightly broken, especially when we see it phasing through walls. So we'll have to wait and see. Because I can definitely see a world in which that decay and buff works in ways it wasn't intended. But that's the beautiful thing about when agents get released into the game.
Yep. I'm excited to see what happens. As always, everybody's going to say, "Oh, it's overpowered. My god, it's terrible." As soon as it gets released to the game, it'll be fine. Yeah, we saw the same thing with everyone, so it's all good. Yeah, we'll see. The
bubble smoke ability. I did see a lot of people kicking off about that, being like, it just sounds a little bit OP. I do sort of understand what they're on about, though. It does sound a bit broken. But what Ryan mentioned, which is probably pretty spot on, is that you have short duration, no recharge, or actually be weaker in some areas. So potentially, it could be cool. This is a better explanation rather than you reading some very fuzzy text. Vision Taker, equip a distortion wall launcher, fire to create a small line of distortion. Enemies will get briefly blinded as they walk through it. Tartarus Pit, which is the Q. So equip a Tartarus launcher, fire to launch a shot that deals some damage and slows. So again, pretty interesting. I think the most important thing there is the slowing, because when you've slowed the damage, then the swing comes on the back of it. Could invite some interesting plays on the back of it. Of course, the bubble, which I know a lot of people were kind of slightly kicking off about, which is a quick bubble, enter into a phase state and place down a bubble by pressing the ability key. It creates an impenetrable bubble. Bullets cannot pass through it, which of course I can understand why people are kicking off. But it won't just be this broken thing which makes you invincible. It's not exactly how it works. There will be, of course, something else added to it. But we'll wait and see. And of course the golem as well. Throw it down. All teammates get a regeneration buff, or enemies get a decay. But kind of, I think the more thing is kind of people were saying about, there's definitely gonna be cases where that phases through walls and where it just does whatever. But either way, interesting. Mage is what we know so far. Is the name in the files? I mean, not confirmed as of just yet. It's still super early doors. I'm assuming we'd probably see this though before roster lock, if I had to take a guess.
I would hope so. I mean, the leaks have been around for about a month now, and the teaser came out a couple of weeks ago. So but I hope we get a good idea on what, at the very least, maybe like a cinematic or something to show us what's gonna be actually going on soon.
We'll have to wait and see. But interesting so far. The concept art's quite cool as well. Of course, we can move on to patches. This was a topic we were going to talk about, and as you mentioned, as of quite literally, like 13 minutes ago or whatever, we do have have some changes being made. Do you want to kind of run us through kind of what we've got?
Okay. Well, the team is going to be testing changes to flashes for a few of our agents, and while the PBA is NA only, Sag, it's important to keep a heads up to everyone. In short, we wanted to make some changes to sharpen the roles for Skye, KO, Reyna, and Yoro. So it seems like lots to flashes then. Skye, KO, Reyna, Yoro, plus the Phoenix changes. Yeah. So that's scary, honestly, because some flashes are already a bit overpowered. It feels like, KO is just bite, but you can't do anything about that. You can time his flashes perfectly, but right now Phoenix seems unavoidable with his flashes. So I am interested to see what they're going to do with that one. So initiators, Skye's guiding light and KO's flash drive will change with the intent to increase their total team play output when coordinating with teammates and decrease some of their power when played alone. How?
That's what I was wondering. How are they gonna and where does that come into play?
I would assume that means it takes longer to pull out your gun afterwards for an initiator or something like that.
Oh, that's true actually. Because I was thinking, how are they gonna make it so that like you're with a teammate in a way?
I'm gonna assume that's what it means.
Yeah, slower time to pull out the gun. That makes a lot more sense, because obviously you see that so often now, especially with KO. I mean, even though you can time the flash, like right click, round a corner, swing off the back of it. It's the most age-old play. We see it in literally every FPS anyway. But it does allow for one person just to step up, which is I guess pretty interesting in terms of how it might change the meta. I mean, like that has been the meta for a long time in terms of, like you mentioned, Phoenix, unavoidable. So yeah, very interesting to see how that one plays out, because then it means that in essence, those sort of players, Phoenix, your KOs, even your Skies become so much more passive if you can't put your gun out in time.
Yeah, well, it looks like Duelist's the idea. So Reyna, it seems like maybe they'll increase the range on it. So it mentions enemies on maps with longer sight lines. It's an angle breaking tool. So I assume she'll pull out a weapon faster or something like that. Maybe Duelists, the whole point of their flashes is that they can play off of them themselves, and maybe it's a little harder for the team to play with it. Yoru has a slightly longer duration on his flash uses in an attempt to provide a power buff while keeping counterplay healthy when used out of dimensional drift, which is just a lot of words.
A lot of words. Big words as well.
Yeah, so the goal is to make sure our initiators aren't outclassing some of our duelists when it comes to generating kills for themselves off of their flashes, which is a good change, I think, honestly.
I agree.
Yeah, I think some KOs and Skies get away with being insanely aggressive, and it should not be that way for a team-based game. The whole point is that the duelist is a self-sufficient fragger. The initiator helps their team get in towards the site.
Exactly.
So I think that's a good thing.
The best way I've always said it, duelists, they're space manipulators, initiators, space creators. That's how it always should be. And you even saw that as well. I know initially when KO got released, everyone was like, well, just make KO an entry. Like, get all the information, self-flashes himself in. If you're competent with your mechanics, you're going to farm. And that was the case for a long, long time. Even Sky as well, we saw people essentially pot flash with Skies, guarding light. So I think that's kind of not exactly how they intended it to be. So I think on paper, it looks like a good change. Just a worrying thing of it may not be a good change.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe.
Which we've seen every time. So who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure initiators are not going to be happy that they have to play with their team now. I think there's a lot of people that pick Sky and KO right now that really don't like the idea that I can get away with not picking a duelist and still play by myself.
Holes being put in the desk as we speak. Fists through drywall.
Why isn't my gun out?
I can already see it happening as well. Or people who don't read the patch notes and then just try and queue up a ranked, and their gun comes out slow or something like that. But then again, we actually don't know if that's even going to be the case. They could have some real ingenious way of making it more team based in a massive quote unquote, because we literally don't know yet. But I do think that's very interesting. This came out literally 20 minutes ago, so very interesting to see kind of how this will change anything. I feel like when these sort of changes are being made as well, if you're a team, you're also shitting yourself a little bit, because you're like, okay, we've got 3 weeks till roster lock, and we've got to try to implement this. Also as well, as third-party tournaments on the horizons, they're while they are taking a break probably to a degree, it's not in terms of going away until January and kicking it up. There's still third-party tournaments kicking about, and of course is getting all the prep ready for the circuit in 2023. So they themselves have got to try and now work this one in. Interesting. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I think so far, it should be pretty good. Boss Cypher, no.
No.
No. Hard.
See, the only reason people are saying that is because they got rid of his favorite map, which is Split.
Exactly.
That's the only thing. Learn lineups on other maps. And you can play Cypher well. Yeah. There's some good Ascent ones. I have a TikTok about it.
There we go. Go and check out Twiggy's TikTok. He's got a good one. But no, thank God. Just good there.
Wait,
this way. No, right away.
There you go. Right there.
down,
right there.
Down that way.
Right there.
This way. But no, I think it's a very, for me, I don't know, obviously no real point going into much detail, but good to see Split move, because I hate it. So
yes. Perfect.
Best way I can put it. Of course. Okay, so now we've kind of alluded to it. We do have a special guest we're going to bring on. We're going to talk more about franchising. And I thought, rather than us talking about franchising and us just waffling about franchising with the information that we got from here, there, and everywhere, why don't we bring on a guest? So we're going to bring on the wonderful Bodork. There's a lot of work in terms of in the scene, in a reporting sense. So we're going to bring him on to talk everything franchising. So we'll cut to bring him in a sec. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we said we'd bring you a special guest to talk through what is probably the most important news of, the year, the game. To be perfectly honest, it's franchising. Bo is going to be joining us to talk through all things kind of franchising. But before we get into all of that, Bo, hello, mate. Thank you for joining us. Who are you?
Yeah, so my name is Bo. I go by Bodork on on Twitter and every single social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I started off as a coach, went over to managing, and then I switched over to journalism, which I am now retiring from, and now I'm switching again. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I've been one of the main reporters who's been like working on the franchising stuff, together with like George, Geddes,
Mhm.
and Alejandro, and some other journalists. There are a lot of journalists who are like
course.
underrated and everything. So, I'll just shout them out real quick. Like Solgi and Bade has been doing some good jobs here and there. So yeah. Oh, and Ominous, of course. Okay, can't forget Ominous.
There we go. There we go. And of course, you've
Alright.
been doing a lot of stuff for Hookahs as well. And if those who don't know
Yeah.
who Hookahs are, the side who've been competing in Polaris for the last 2 seasons, and a very decent side of that too.
Yeah, so I mean, like, Hookahs is basically my little like baby, basically my little project, you could say.
Sure.
I started off as their social media manager, but slowly started working with like getting negotiations for organizations and basically managing the team. But limiting it so it doesn't like become a conflict of interest with my work as a journalist.
There we go. Is there any kind of, do you have any updates about potentially if we're going to see Hookahs picked up? That's obviously that's been the big thing for the last 2 seasons is, hashtag sign Hookahs. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, like, Hookahs is like 80% chance that we're gonna be signed before 2023.
There we go. There we go.
Massive.
Well, let's just go straight into kind of what we are bringing you on for. Of course, the big news and the big thing we're all talking about is franchising. And we can kind of run through how this is all going to work. Of course, you can kind of detail us through this entire thing. But these are the 30 teams that are making it through for franchising. It's obviously the big news that everybody's talking about right now. Explain how this is all going to work, Bo. I mean, like, for a lot of people, especially kind of newer people to Valorant, this is quite confusing. So do you want to kind of run us through how this is actually going to work?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the best at explaining stuff, but I'm gonna try my best right here because it's really chaotic.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's a chaotic way it's been explained. The 30 partner teams have been revealed. They will be starting off playing in like the kickoff tournament, which is being held in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And it's basically going to be like an introduction to the new teams. You got to remember, partner, like the whole partner system is a full reset of Valorant. So it doesn't matter of how your team performed or anything. It's a complete reset. So it's about the organizations if they are gonna like stay committed to Valorant forever. And it's like the reasoning why they picked certain teams is because they know it's not going to be problematic. It's not going to be controversial. They're not going to try to sell their spot. That kind of stuff.
I mean, it happens quite a lot in like League and Dota, right? You see that occasionally with people like buying spot. Is the plan that's not going to be happening here? Like, there's never going to be.
It's going to be impossible to sell a spot because you are in a partnership.
Right.
program.
Okay. Sure.
It's not like you're buying into it, so you have the rights to sell it again.
Okay.
You are partnered. You're getting paid to be in it, and you can't sell it. It's a value. You can't sell it basically.
What happens though in a very rough case that someone an organization just implodes, no longer has money, cannot compete, cannot what happens then?
They get kicked.
But then,
simple as that.
How does it turn? Do they just bring in another person to kind of replace them in the partnership?
So it hasn't been really like explained well yet.
Sure.
But basically, like, if a team like gets into financial troubles and they are set to be like bankrupt, there's gonna be a high chance that Riot has like a short list of teams that they consider okay, these guys can actually get into the partnership in place of this organization.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. I guess the other thing that we were talking about, Twiggy, was kind of what are teams like, I guess, T1 in terms of APAC or like, the NRGs of the world who don't really have teams that are up there in terms of competing in Tier 1. How are they going to go about now? Because the roster lock is in, it's in like 3 weeks, more or less. How are they going to go about kind of this next 3 weeks to kind of, pick up a ready side?
Okay, so the simple way is basically they are going to go batshit crazy and sign whichever they want. They just sign, don't care about how they're gonna perform. Basically sign, then test them out.
It's rough
because like it's like first person to the windmill basically.
Damn, that is it's gonna be interesting. Obviously, the big person that everyone's kind of looking at is Ye as well, right? I mean, there's been a lot of rumors.
He's got insane offers.
Yeah,
he's got like probably some of the most like funny offers. One of them being Carmen Corp.
Okay.
Carmen Corp was interested in Ye.
Sure.
Out of all teams, I didn't really expect them. So, but there was also Bleed Esports who gave him an offer.
It was like 1 million. Was it 1 million a year? Was it something? I saw that.
Yeah,
some
I
figure
mean,
floating
like,
about.
genuinely, like, those are the average like offers Ye is getting apparently.
Lucky
That's
man.
wild.
And you gotta remember he's also got one hell of a buyout. I believe.
Do we know what it is?
Okay, so this is from a few sources. I
Mhm.
cannot like 100% confirm it.
Sure.
But the buyout is around 1 million.
My
Around.
Expensive.
And I don't have
Pretty
like
decent.
100% confirmation of that, so just take it
Wow.
with a grain of salt, please.
I mean that kind of money for a team that isn't even like they're not going to compete with him really in any proper competition. Like otherwise he's just playing tier 2. That's pretty insane.
I mean,
Yeah.
then again, though, it's just the other thing of that because he is more or less the best player in the world. I mean, I think a lot of people would kind of happily make that argument that he's the best player in the world. Then
Yeah.
I think Optic just know that they can just, at least kind of save the bank a little bit since they haven't got the partnership thing.
Yep.
Which it's a massive. But I guess the other conversation then is the teams who didn't get partnership. Optic being one of them, G2 being another one. That's the kind of the controversial one. So talk us through the big org. I think the big ones that people were talking about in NA was kind of Optic, TSM, the big two. Is kind of reasons as to why they didn't get it.
So the reasoning I think Optic didn't get in has mostly to do with like Optic's history when it comes to franchise leagues. They've basically
like?
So they started off in the LCS, and they sold their spot like pretty early on.
Brilliant.
In the LCS,
Good start.
when they got bought out by Immortals.
Okay.
I believe.
Oh,
They got bought out by Immortals. So the Optic brand has been flying around different like bigger companies, and it's basically like I don't think Riot wanted to take a chance on it, even though it's like now owned by Envy, and Envy is doing a good job when it comes to like franchise teams and everything. There's still like issues, which I feel like Riot just didn't want to take any chance on.
That's
I feel like you want a good relationship with Riot because I know Optic have done well with Acti Blizzard in the COD League. Obviously, they've been a franchise team in there for quite a while, and they're doing incredibly well in it. But it's like Riot don't have first-hand experience. Yeah, and then you look at other ones. Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit hit and miss. Yeah.
Yeah, Dallas Fuel only recently became like an actual good or
to start with, they were just kind of the content creator team, really. Yeah, so I remember XQC was on it.
My goat. But with like TSM, do you think kind of I know like there's a lot of kind of speculation as to why TSM didn't get it. They're a huge org, but do you think it was kind of they themselves have a bit of a kind of a ropey history in terms of who leads them? I know like is it Reginald? I think a lot of people think he's a little. I have
like a theory.
Go on.
It doesn't have anything to do with Reginald. It's basically like, and I think George mentioned it on my stream once. Riot is maybe because like they know TSM is going to stay in Valorant.
Sure.
And they basically looked at which organizations are highly profitable and can actually help develop the tier 2 scene.
Oh, okay. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that TSM surely don't want. I mean, surely they wouldn't have wanted to be that. They would, they want to be one of the franchise teams. So if that is the reason, I can't see them being too happy with it.
Yeah, I mean. It is like a sign for TSM to step up, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I do think that they are 100% going to be one of the teams like who are going to win like Ascension in America.
Yeah, it seems like, especially kind of the money they have and the caliber of talent they have as well.
Yeah, especially with like organizations like Complexity looking at other regions, and same thing with Dark Zero and KCP. So like it's pretty possible for them to get far in
there's kind of two camps of thought when it comes to teams right now, and that one of them loves to try and ruin their relationship with Riot immediately and throw their toys out the pram, and the other one is trying to get into Ascension immediately. Because look, there was Alliance that really want to try and get through Ascension, which does imply to me that Polaris is going to become tier 2 now, that Polaris will become challengers. But also it's just like they want to get super team together, get through immediately, get into the partnership league. But also there's FPX who just threw their toys out the pram and went, we are so disappointed and disgusted with Riot's actions. This is terrible.
I have so much to say about FPX.
Go for it. The floor is yours.
Unfortunately, I am not allowed to
Ah,
talk about it.
Oh no.
So,
reporters say that's it.
I am
Uh,
generally I am disappointed by the way FPX has reacted.
yeah,
feel like-
I saw that tweet come out. I was like, that is not a good way to handle this
It was just in a
situation.
short
whatsoever.
especially
Yeah, exactly.
especially with insiders knowing how they have like managed their EMEA team.
Yeah.
It's,
Right.
Like
It just kind of shows immaturity at that top level, right? I mean, like,
exactly.
they're not an org that's always going to be dealt like the most favorable hands every single time, so they got to deal with it when it's not. And of course, like, you see teams that are working through the Ascension series and going to try and kind of make their step up, right? You're going to bide time, I think, a little bit. We kind of mentioned there might potentially be opportunities in the future where a spot opens up for franchising. That's when you've got to have worked, kind of on that relationship with Riot to hopefully kind of, I guess, get the opportunity in the future. But I mean, speaking of tier 2, obviously you're working with Hookars, kind of trying to get them signed, and obviously you might have a little bit more detail. How is the tier 2 going to work, basically? I think, especially for myself, I don't know about you, Twiggy, but as kind of casters, I feel like I even don't really know too much information on how it's all going to work. Do you have any
that's
insight?
classic. That's classic. The communication isn't really there yet. We'll be honest.
So like TLDR, we know nothing.
Nice.
There's like absolutely.
all in the same boat.
I still have no idea if like the Challenger League are just the VRLs.
Yeah,
Like
so
the
it
regional
seems
leagues.
like it, right? Because there
It
is
seems
the
like
same regions for challenges as there were for the VRLs, and I feel like VRLs were just a test, like testing the waters for tier 2. And also, the branding went terribly for VRLs. Obviously, they didn't get the rights to use the word VRL.
Yeah, they could
that
copyright,
which was a whole thing.
Yeah,
so
that was
it would
brilliant.
do
That was
them
one
well
of
to
the
get
more
rid of
funniest
that whole branding thing and then just move it up to challengers and have the same broadcast producers, like broadcast partners, take over challengers, and then suddenly you're delegating that responsibility away, and now the system works for NA and for Pacific and stuff like that. So I think that would be a good idea, and it does make sense to me. But look, the day we get to know about something Riot is planning before, like 2 weeks before it happens, is just
It's
hell
a
freezes over. That's something has gone wrong.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, like,
it's sort of interesting, isn't it? Because I think the way it's set up, as you mentioned, it sort of looks like things are staying the same in terms of how things are run at the moment. I just kind of want to see how that changes. Also, as well, kind of, is it ever going to be? We saw kind of previously with the first VRL, there was kind of the focus what it was, who kind of moved up from there into VCT. Obviously, that's not really going to be a thing anymore. So, kind of, how does that work then? What's the end goal for these tier 2 sites?
So we don't know enough information about it, but my estimated guess as a manager is basically you win Challenger League in your region, and then you get up to like an Ascension qualifier.
Sure.
And then you can qualify for like the Ascension League, basically.
Okay, all right. And of course, these are kind of, you did a little tweet, Bo, kind of talking about kind of how it's going to work in the Challenger League. Minimum age of 16, fair enough. Roster lock on February 20th,
but that
so
does,
way further
like,
away.
The minimum age does put like an issue.
Yeah,
at least
because
in my opinion.
you can go from challengers and then suddenly be ineligible if you qualify for VCT
Yeah, exactly.
for the international league, because it's 18 in the international
Yeah.
league. That's an
So
interesting
imagine
one.
like Kili Karslan. Like Turkish prodigy. Like imagine he qualifies to Ascension, gets the Ascension like spot with his team. He can't play.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for Riot, is that kind of a case of having these guys who are, they're by law kind of not adults yet, essentially getting them just in the scene, involved, ready, but not stepping up?
That tells me that it is a training league. This is path to pro, literally just path to pro.
Yeah, this is where I actually would like a separate league, like an academy
in between.
League.
Okay.
Yeah, but they said they didn't allow academy teams, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was like the weird part, because like you haven't given any information about tier 2. Organizations don't want to like go into tier 2 if they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And then you just like ban academy teams. That's that's not the best way to go. That's how you kill like your tier 2 scene.
Yeah, especially because in other games as well, academy teams are so kind of important. I mean, CS is a really great example. I mean, the academy teams were Manesi came from Na'Vi Junior Academy, right? Not Na'Vi Junior, which is their academy roster, and is now arguably one of the best players in the world. And he's like 17, 16 years of age.
It's the same thing with Overwatch as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So many players that are right now in the Overwatch league or were years ago came from, you know, the Atlanta Reigns Academy team.
Yeah.
Funny Astro, for example, came from the Atlanta Reigns Academy team, moved up to Atlanta Reign, and then now he's one of the best supports in the world. And it's just, it feels like it's a great way to get investment into the tier 2 league.
Exactly.
And unless you have secured more, then why are you saying you can't do that?
Yeah, and like putting you could of course just set up like an academy league that's like totally outside of like the whole ascension system.
Keeps in his little bubble.
And it's basically just like organizations telling like young prodigies, yo, we're interested in picking you up in the future. We could sign you to the academy team. You could play in the academy league, and then when you're 18, we can potentially sell you to another organization, or we could pick you up.
Yeah, I mean that's literally CS. I mean, like the We Play Academy League it's just in its own bubble. There's no movement between anything else. But kind of, you can already see the success coming through. Because Mouse Sports, for example, 6th best team in the world currently in CS. 3 out of their players are from their own academy. I mean, so they've all made that step up, and they're the 6th best team in the world. So, I mean, it seems on paper like it's doable because we've had previous examples, Overwatch and CS:GO, and I'm sure there's probably others as well in other esports that maybe we don't know too much about. Maybe I think Siege is some sort of like something along those lines. But either way, it's you know, it shows that it's doable, especially if it's kept in the bubble. The only thing I can think that Valorant or Riot are kind of scared of, which is fair enough, is conflict of interest, which has kind of happened a couple of times. I mean, like, again, just to use CS:GO as a good example, EG have 3 teams, right? So it's ripe for conflict of interest there.
But that's where you just close off that league.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is where this lack of transparency and the secrecy comes in, and it becomes really awkward for orgs, for everybody involved, to try and make informed decisions about next year. And how are you going to get people to spend money if they don't know what's going on? Like, how are you going to get people to invest in your league if they don't know what's happening until like a month before? Like, we've got how many months left now until they start? This one's starting early, so it'd be February, right?
Yes,
for this one. January. It's January already. Well, but like for some reason it says February, like in the summary.
So we've got 3 months now. We've got 3 months to get everything done, and nobody knows what's going on still. And we don't even know if there's going to be. Like they said, okay, tier 3 is going to be the in-game system, the in-game kind of tournament system, clash.
Yeah, we're not even sure if like the clash thing is coming out.
Right, exactly. We don't know anything about that yet, and that's how you're supposed to qualify for.
We've got no information. How are we supposed to get an organization?
Right, and then we don't know how VRL, if that's going to exist anymore, because if it is, then how is it going to work along with Clash? And then if it isn't, then is it becoming challenges? And if it is, then how are we going to like get everybody? Do people automatically qualify if they were in the VRLs?
Can we just all agree that we need like a book from Riot, which basically just explains every single word they have, like in
every
scenario.
So
like Challenger League. What does that mean? Challenger League are basically VRLs. They could literally just write that, and we'll go, okay, it makes sense.
Exactly.
Now we know how to actually qualify.
Just say what you're doing with VRLs, and we will know what's going on here. But there's no communication. There's no communication.
Right now we don't know if there's actually value with our VRL spot.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
That's the thing for you guys.
Organizations have dipped
so much worse. Yeah, because investors are going to pull out. Orgs are just not going to want to sign a team because they don't know what's going on.
Well,
and this has already happened.
Of a return on investment, like there's nothing to go off. There's no information either. So for investors coming in, you know, especially into the challenger like kind of stage, you know, let's say Uber, you know, you've got the kind of impossible job of trying to get people to sign your roster who are a very good roster in a very good region, but then at the same time it's like you go to an investor like, okay, and he's like, right, let's just talk financials, where's my return? I don't know, mate. Like I can't even tell you because no one knows. So it's like, I think it's evident to me that like Riot they've got this idea in their head of this kind of this grand scheme of things, but they haven't worked out the small details, or they haven't even worked out some of the major details of kind of how these things intertwine and how this entire kind of circuit from essentially path to pro, you know, from just a dude playing in his mum's basement to like then, you know, being on this grand stage. How does that all intertwine?
So like, especially EMEA, I don't think there's any like return right now. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. There's like a prize pool you get back, fine.
It's probably not enough though,
Well,
right? To sustain.
We don't
No,
know.
it's not enough.
Yeah, we don't know how it's going to work with broadcasting, so we don't know how many viewers we're likely to get. We don't know. Well, I mean, I don't mind the viewer count, but investors definitely will, and orgs definitely will. And we've seen already how many orgs
And
have dropped their
sponsors.
rosters in NA at the very
Yeah,
least.
I mean, like,
how many
you gotta
orgs have just
remember,
gone, we don't know what's going on.
FPX, the entire time they've been here, they've had 0 sponsors.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah.
That just tells you a lot.
It costs a lot to run to get a team, to run an esports organization. And then, we're going to assume challenges is going to be all online, so it doesn't really matter about the relocation. But they're going to want to boot camp. They're going to want to do all this. They're going to want to invest in their players. That's a lot of money. And if you don't know how the whole system is going to work, then why would you spend that money? Why would you not just say, okay, let's invest in another game where things are easier to understand, where we can just pick up a good roster and spend the money that we would have in an uncertain place in Valorant.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there's a lot of potential in Valorant. There's a lot of potential to make money. That we've seen how popular it is. It gets millions of viewers worldwide, but we don't know what's going on, and we're not part of the partnership league. So why would we risk that?
Yeah, and also, like, Riot has a moral high ground of, like, we don't want any gambling sponsors. We don't want any crypto sponsors. We don't want any like oil sponsors.
Right,
that's also something that became a thing.
It's part of Riot's whole rebranding of.
It's the best way to do it. Yes, because that's shady money.
I mean, we see it in CS all the time.
But then you got to realize, like, we've got no money.
Yeah, exactly. Now suddenly it's very difficult to make money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since, funnily enough, all of the shady ways are all of the best ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Exactly. I mean, like you kind of, as an example, obviously, I know you speak about it quite a bit, but in terms of CS, right? I mean, there's a lot of shady money in CS, a lot of rogue sponsors. Even at the highest level, there's some really dodgy ones. But man, do they bring in some serious money? So
I believe like Coco, the French reporter. He made an entire article about 1xBet.
I was gonna mention 1xBet as a class. I mean, it's not a company. Like it's like
not a company.
It's a shell company with like.
Yeah, and they've been trying to sponsor like Valorant teams for a while now.
It looks like money laundering basically on paper. I mean, there's so little information, which is actually the worst part about it, because it's meant to be a like $100 million company, whatever. So God knows where they're getting this money from. God knows, no one even knows where they're kind of set up from. It's very weird. But yeah, I think Riot done the good thing about kind of trying to space themselves away from that. But it does leave these gaps.
See, the thing is, in esports, we're in the kind of nice situation that money isn't as much of an issue as maybe stuff like F1, where you cannot avoid those shady sponsors. You can't do anything about that. You're going to have to take, like FTX for Mercedes and stuff like that. And you have to take these things. You have to, because it costs millions and millions and millions and millions in R&D to keep that going. You don't have to spend that money in esports. It's much more, like, yes, obviously you're going to need relocation and stuff like that. But I mean, in general, all of your money is going to go towards marketing.
Something that I discovered today was an organization basically decided, okay, we're gonna cut 15% of our budget for Counter-Strike and put it into other esports. They could sign 3 rosters in 3 different esports teams with 15% of their budget in Counter-Strike. It's a money pit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the wages as well, like they're just
it's
ridiculous.
insane.
Right. But the thing that's interesting to me, I swear Na'Vi are very one of their major sponsors is a betting company. I swear in CS either way. So I don't know how does that translate over to the Valorant team, because I'm pretty sure a lot of their money. I know like they've got some big sponsor, which is some betting company. So
they've got a lot of investors because they are like the Ukrainian organization.
Yeah, exactly.
So they've got a lot of investments, but they also have a few cheap rosters. They have
a couple. GGBet, Bybit.
Yeah. GGBet, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, they
Bybit as well is a big one.
They have a lot of money coming in from betting companies, but I guess they obviously.
But also have cheap rosters in other esports teams.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
same thing in Valorant.
Valorant is their big
also.
one.
Man, I mean, they have probably 20 something teams over all esports. They have mobile investments. They have everything from Rocket League to CS:GO.
Siege, all the whole lot. Yeah,
but that's the money pit. When you start taking these shady investments, it's esports. You can expand so much, which is immoral, but really good for business.
It's very.
Speaking of which, can we talk about G2?
I mean, it has to be mentioned.
Good transition, honestly. I respect that.
Who wants to take the first stab at it?
Well, okay, I'm pretty passionate about this one because I like I've got a lot of people telling me that it's cancel culture gone wrong all over again, and it's not. It's not.
It's capitalism.
Okay, so cancel culture. Personally, I don't think it exists, but there are places where you can say, "Oh, cancel culture," right, and it makes sense. This does not. Carlos lost or didn't lose technically. They didn't have it in the first place, but they fumbled a $15 million or more bag. Yeah, they basically, it was right on the finish line, and then he posted that video. And it's not the fact that people were angry about it on social media, it's the fact that Riot did not like that because they're trying to rebrand as a really progressive company, which is really good. With their past, that's a really good thing to do. And he doubles down, and he says, "Oh, I can party with who I want." And then Riot goes, "Actually, you know what? No, you can't. That's a brand risk. We don't like that." And then his shareholders go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you don't have more than a 50% share in your own company, you are an employee. You are not, like, that's how this works.
Yeah.
You are going to be forced to step down if you fumble that big of a bag.
Exactly.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Wait, so Bo, obviously, like, we know kind of, so G2, they were, as I said, you were saying, on the finish line. Kind of, do you want to give us the rundown just before, kind of, like, we voice our opinions, kind of the rundown of how they were on the finish line? Because the whole rumors and speculation was around NA, right?
Yeah, so basically they were committed 100% to North America. They had like for like if they didn't make America, they had like a bit of like, okay, this is like the potential core we want in EMEA. Blah, blah, blah. We don't care about it. For North America, they were interested in Xset.
Yeah. Second put out a tweet saying how Andrew Tate cost him his job. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is just a banger tweet, to be honest. Second is I love Second.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't expect G2 to pick up the entire Xset roster. I do believe that they would have made a change or two.
Oh, yeah.
So, because like that's the same thing with every single other franchise team. Maybe except like EG. I don't know what EG is doing.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to talk about.
I was thinking they're going to have to poach a roster, like just a full one. They don't have enough time to build anything.
No.
Yeah, like it seems like they're keeping like pretty much a big part of their current roster. So I'm unsure if that's the best way to go, but I do expect I do believe in EG. They are just very slow at building good rosters.
Right. I have a lot of opinions about EG, but I don't think it's a great org. Like, I mean for other games, I think whoever's at the top of EG is terribly run. Like, it's a
morally high ground organization. So they don't like. If there's a controversial player, it doesn't matter which way in controversy. It's just because like they're toxic. No.
Yeah.
Not gonna pick them up.
Yeah. That's a respectable way to go, but
they get so much sponsorship. Yeah. They get so much money.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible from the investors because like they have that moral high ground, which makes them like a non-controversial organization to partner up with.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it, like, again, I think CS is another great example because EG are so prominent at the moment in CS because they've got 3 rosters. But it's like, it's just... Yeah, they got 3 CSGO rosters. It's insane. But, I mean...
Respective Bodork.
Yeah, respective Bodork. Well, I love that dude. But, I don't know. I think EG as an organization, I don't think they're really well run at all. I mean, they just, like, left, right, and centre, there's always some dumb decision happening. But credit to them, in a moral standpoint, they're very good. Because obviously, like, I guess in CS, they committed. They want to help the NA scene because it was just dying, basically.
Yeah, it's basically just money pit at this point.
Exactly, and they just signed, 2 small NA teams to kind of just give them a salary so they weren't just free agents. So I respect them in terms of a moral standpoint. I just think they're really badly run. So I'm like keen eye watching them in Valve because I'm just waiting for another classic fuck up from them.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a bottom runner team. Like, we see it in everything. That's a sure way to make some money, and you don't need to win leagues to like
you can
do
build
incredibly
talent.
Well. Exactly, you can build
But
talent.
I don't think it's a good idea to have an organization that's like building talent
and selling them for profit, right?
Right, exactly. That's the kind of thing, right? And
I don't think EG is an organization who will do that.
Yeah. They've committed to being in the international league. They need to uphold a certain standard.
Exactly.
You can't just go, like, I don't know how many games would be played throughout the whole series. I guess with 10 teams, probably something like 19
they'll start off like
games,
at the bottom, like in Sao Paulo. They are just absolutely gonna suck.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then at the end of the season, they might make.
Well, okay.
Top
Do we
5,
think
6.
there's going to be roster change windows then, or do we think?
Yeah.
Because obviously, if there's a roster lock, I feel like
after kickoff they can like.
Right. I assume there's going to be one after. Yeah. But do we think for the whole season? Do we think they will implement? First off, salary caps, and second off, like a roster change kind of window.
Roster changes are basically gonna happen every single split, I guess.
All right.
Oh, okay. So there's gonna be like gaps in between.
Opens up like, yo, you guys can make a trade. You guys can pick up this player, but you have to bench this player, and you can't really like do this and that.
Okay.
And then there's like the second problem, which is like very prevalent in the VRL. If you played in a VRL, you can't play in a VRC.
Oh, right.
How is that fair?
Yeah.
Multiple players have like been fucked over by that.
Yeah, I saw Yap tweet about it from H2O. He was on like in Split 1.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah. And he was saying like,
and
he wanted to go back into the VRCs and make his way through there. Like, a new team, but because he played VRL, he can't. But like, he's a player of his caliber who can play VRL level. Okay, granted, they've got 1 win out of 14 games, so it's not exactly like he's top tier talent. But
it was a good win.
It was. I was casting. It was great, actually. To be fair.
The problem if you're gonna force EMEA tournament organizers to license with you as an official Riot sponsored event. Yeah. And then deny players from playing in other Riot sponsored events. You can't do that. You have to leave either like. You can't have two things at once. You have to either let people do third-party tournaments so that everybody can participate in whatever they want, or you have to let people participate in more than one of your events. Because otherwise there's no viable way to make money. There's no viable way to get experience.
You gotta fuck up the scene. Simple.
It seems like there's so many levels of things going on in Riot, and they're all conflicting with each other. Somebody needs to sort out a full-on trickle-down system. It's right.
But when you don't explain it,
yes, exactly. When you don't explain it to people, and when you make it as difficult as possible, if there's any message out of this episode of the podcast, it is Riot. Please be a little more transparent. Please, we just want any info.
A little bit.
Team managers,
just have an interview.
Broadcast
have an interview with like the Washington Post. Just esports. Anyone. Just explain it.
Just sit down with somebody. Explain what's going on. I understand that things you may not want to disclose information until it's fully ready and everything. Yeah. But we need something. Team managers need something. Investors need something to work with. Otherwise, I mean, I'm not going to say the esport is going to tank. It won't. You're Riot Games. You have infinite resources and money, but. It's people from the outside are going to be so confused that they're not going to want to watch.
Well, people on the inside
the main
are
problem.
Confused. We're confused. We are the inside.
Exactly. I'm confused.
I think you're spot on.
You just had one of the biggest British organizations just leave the scene.
Yeah.
Like, Excel just dipped.
Yeah. I mean,
and they're not coming back. That's for sure.
I don't know. It's really. It's kind of a bit. It's just like we want the smallest bit of information. And I think especially for tier 2, there needs to be a little bit more information because they need to kind of. Essentially guarantee to investors and organizations that are involved in tier 2, like Excel is a great example, or Guild, for example, another one.
Guild is gonna be gone.
Exactly. That's the thing. So I know. I read about but they're probably gonna leave. I think if there was a little bit more information, especially in the tier 2 circuits, be like, okay, this is still viable for you guys. You can still make this a possibility. You can still grind out in tier 2. All of that's gonna be fine. But I don't know. It's very interesting to me. The other thing that I was gonna ask you about, Bo, if you had more information, because I actually did a bit of research and I couldn't find anything. Was how does this affect game changers in the women's teams? Because obviously, G2 Kazan are arguably...
I actually wanted to talk about this because
they're arguably the best women's team. I mean, I C9 White as well, but I mean, we've never actually seen them play against each other yet. But a lot of arguments to say that G2 Kazan are the best women's team, and now of course they're no org. How does this all work?
Okay, so here's like the fucked thing.
Okay.
And I feel like that's really disrespectful by those organizations and shows why it was a good idea that they didn't get into partnerships.
Okay.
There's some organizations who are now going to drop their female roster because they didn't get into partnerships.
Damn. Is G2 one of them?
Not right now.
Okay. Ooh, that's good to
hear. I think they're going to stay. It's the same thing with Xset. They're probably going to stay. But there are some roaches. There are some roaches of organizations out here.
Do you want to call
basically
well, that's the thing, right? Because Game Changers, it's great for PR for organizations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For organizations that genuinely do not care, and that's a lot of them. You may think there's a few of them. There is a lot of them. I can tell you right now. There's a lot that really don't care about the women's team whatsoever. They're just in it for the PR.
Yeah.
That is all it is. It's great PR. Yeah. It's we have a women's team. We're supporting the women's team. We're supporting marginalized genders. We're supporting all of this. But it's
shout out to those organizations who have only invested into the women's team.
They're
Misfits,
genuinely
fucking love you.
Yeah, that is amazing. First off, it shows that you're not. Look, hey. I don't have a problem with virtue signaling if it actually supports women. That's fine, because if the teams are getting money, that's all good. Whatever, you can virtue signal all you like. I'm not gonna tell you that you should have morals without paying women. They're doing a good thing, net positive, right? Yeah. But as soon as now they're realizing, this is gonna lose us a lot of money now. Yeah, they're gonna drop them. We're gonna see exactly what teams, how many teams, and there are a lot that really did not care from the beginning.
Yeah. So expect some surprises, I would say.
Do we know any? I know, Bo, you kind of work in the journalist scene. Do we know any that are already dropping their rosters that are like more or less confirmed that we can basically just be like, fuck you?
Terrible people.
If I speak, I will be in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, we're gonna, eyes combing over Twitter for the next couple of weeks to see kind of who now they haven't got partnerships. Like, well, this women's team.
Once they drop them, I'll call them out.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until after championships anyway. So we're going to be waiting a month or so.
Exactly.
Don't worry about that.
But interesting, especially kind of for the teams. I mean, like I said, G2 could end a pretty good example because they are arguably the best women's team, the best in Europe at the very least, or up there in terms of competitive scene. Best. Yeah, and
right now, nobody.
Maybe Team Liquid Brazil.
Oh,
Team Liquid Brazil.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I actually feel like they are like one of the more structured teams.
Mm-hmm. This qualifier in EMEA did impress me in terms of like the amount of teams that looked really good. For instance, Na'Vi looked incredible. They absolutely smashed Guild X, which is not an easy feat.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to this.
Like a couple of times,
Guild X have come second pretty much every season, and Na'Vi beat them 13-1 in the qualifiers. Yeah. So.
Fair play.
This will be a very good EMEA game changers to watch.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. I guess other things that changes recently that I really like. I saw from your tweet, in fact, Bo, is with the Challenger League Tier 2, essentially, 3 out of 5 have to be from that region. Thank God they've actually done this now, because we saw, for example, like Vitality had one. Do you know what? Vitality's one pissed me off actually the most, because the way they did it, I don't know if obviously you guys will know, but the way the way they got around it,
Mad Lions was much worse.
Exactly. The way Vitality got around it, this is what someone was telling me, and I'm pretty sure you can say confirm or deny it, but their 6th man who got them across the line of having I think it was like 2 out of 6, whatever. Their 6th man was just a content creator. He wasn't even a player. Like, he's never played.
Yeah, but he was also like a really bad person, so they kicked him.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, but that's what I mean. So it's like you got this content creator who's a prick, basically. But that's how they got them aligned. And like those.
It's the same thing for every single other organization.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
exactly.
The Spanish orgs did it too.
Yeah.
I believe only Polaris didn't do it.
There needs to be case by case. They need to look at all of these case by cases, because this is now you're under the VCT brand. This is actually Riot's responsibility now. Now it's not just it's not just it's not just it's the VRLs. We don't really need to whatever. Now they are in your house. You don't let them take a shit on the floor, Riot. You need to actually case by case go through these teams and be like, keep them in line. You cannot let them get away with this kind of terrible, like, really immoral, terrible stuff, especially if you're going to keep people to the standards that you set with G2.
Exactly.
Here comes the other problem. The residency rules, they are going to look a lot like the ones in League of Legends. So basically, if you have been in the VRL for 2 splits, you are considered a resident.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
I guess that deserves to be 2 splits.
From the wording of the summary, it was basically like, you have to be like a legal resident.
Oh yeah, that's what they're doing.
So it's a bit confusing right now.
In CS, the way it works is it's not about kind of how many splits, but you have to by law be a resident. So like I know there was like a kind of recently there's a team called Koana, and they're a German org, but none of their players are German. But they got all their players over, and they're like by law residents in Germany. I mean, there's a lot of argument on kind of how that works, but they literally live there full time. They spend all their time there. They are residents. That's where they pay their taxes. So I guess you can make that argument there. But the kind of how it was before, where it was like there was like teams of like one player from the actual region. The rest of them were like from all over. I'm not a fan of that.
The thing with like, and now I'm going into like the bit more political side. But, Team Empire.
Okay, sure.
They never had to change their name at all.
Right.
Wanna know why?
Why?
Because they have a legal address in, I believe it was Lithuania.
Oh, okay.
And nobody lives there.
Right, brilliant.
Okay.
So that's how they got away with like not really changing their name.
Where like other orgs did, right? Like VP and stuff like that.
Yeah, Virtus Pro they just changed, I believe, ownership, CEO.
Yeah, they did.
They changed the CEO.
So
and
they're
somehow,
allowed back
like,
in, right? Like I've seen rumors about VP being
by
allowed.
Valve.
By Valve. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to transfer across to other games.
Others will accept it.
Sure, fair enough. I feel like, I mean, it kind of makes complete sense, right? To be fair, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I guess unless there's anything else, we've kind of more or less hit the summary. I guess the one thing I can say on the G2 situation, Carlos is a moron.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically,
I mean,
just for people on Twitter, like, and I know people were like, "Oh, cancel culture is stupid." It's not cancel culture. It's purely capitalism. There was an opportunity to be getting 15 million a year or whatever, and by him partying with someone who's literally a misogynist and like, you know, and
he knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
he knew what he was doing.
Alleged women beater and trafficker, amongst many other things. Right? Not a good dude. Also, like, if you want to make arguments, Andrew Tate's a good dude. First of all, fuck off. Second of all, he's actually banned from every platform because of how dangerous his views are. So just think for a second. But he partied with him, and then to double down, that was the thing that caused him. If he had partied with him and be like, okay, sorry, that was really stupid. He was there. I apologize.
Yeah, if he had apologized, Riot probably would have looked on him a lot more favorably.
All he did was like, no one tells me who the fuck I party with. You're an idiot, Carlos, because he's just thrown all this money down the drain. The only thing I'm thinking of though is he's no longer CEO, but surely he's still majority shareholder, right? Because it's his company.
Oh, he's like completely out of the company.
He's out. He was forced to step down.
God, so he has no shareholdings. Like,
I
anymore,
assume
like.
he still has shares.
That's what I'm assuming. He was
85%
85% owner, from my understanding. So I'm sure he he set down as CEO, which means he's not getting that paycheck, but he's still 85% owner of G2. He's probably like, not in the grand scheme of things. Probably like, fuck it, whatever. I'm gonna do whatever I want. I still own 85% of one of the biggest organizations in the world. So in the grand scheme of things, he's still gonna be fucking minted either way. So
yeah,
but,
exactly. You can say what you want about whether he deserved to have to step down or what, but like that's what happens in business. If anybody else, you can't set one standard for every business in the world, like Apple, like Google, whatever. And if the CEO did something like that, you would want them to step. Like the investors would say, you cannot do this. You are a brand risk, and then go, oh, but Carlos is so quirky and funny, and it's G2, it's esports.
And also like,
if you want esports to be treated like actual businesses and actual sports, hold people to the same standards as you would with actual companies.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like there are a lot of like people who knew Carlos really well, who like defended him and everything. I completely understand it. I don't think he's misogynistic. I don't doubt. He just partied with the wrong fucking person.
He's just an idiot.
Yeah. He's probably actually a very nice dude. All things considered, I think as well. Like, kind of when I've seen him online, he seems like a lovely dude. He made a bad mistake, and I know people were like, "Oh my god, cancel culture," because he made one mistake. But it's not the mistake that's the bad thing. It's the doubling down and like not apologizing. And then when he did apologize, it was like super half-assed.
And he was still liking tweets.
Yeah, and he was still liking tweets defending him. And it's just like, you're not helping your case. If he had made the one mistake and been like, okay, I apologize, that was really fucking stupid. I'm gonna take a little break here. Like, I'm a bit of a moron. I'm sorry. I'm actually 97% sure it would have been fine. He still would have got the partnership. Would have signed Xset. Bob's your uncle. No, it's just the stuff after the fact, which was kind of made things so much worse. Basically, it's not the mistake itself. It's the doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down with the liking of tweets and whatever, retweeting stuff. And it's like, that's the bit that makes it stupid, because he's being costly. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not cancel culture, it's capitalism. His investors saw him make a stupid mistake and then continue to double down on it, and they've been like, you just lost us $15 million, you're a moron, stop running this company, because we can't have you, who is a brand risk, losing us multiple opportunities to get tens of millions of dollars a year because you're partying with this idiot. Like, that's the sole reason that this happened. It's not because of, oh my god, cancel culture. It's because he lost those investors who putting stupid money into G2, tens of millions of dollars a year. That's the sole reason. Money runs everything. Capitalism is entirely at fault for this. Don't lean into this bullshit about cancel culture. That's not the reason why. It's because he lost his investors a lot of money, and they would have been like, you can't run this company. You're going to keep being a fucking idiot, basically.
There were more orgs who nearly made it into the partnership, I heard.
Any, do you want to give us a rundown who were very close?
Oh boy. All I can say, like,
I'm just thinking of the. Do you know the fucking like nursery rhyme, the where he goes through all the countries, like?
Yeah. Who was close that has been like kind of like that you don't have to keep under wraps? That is like allowed to be said.
You remember when a certain Brazilian leaker leaked the entire list of like the Americas League
Yes, yeah, I do.
before
remember one of
George?
that. Yeah.
That was quite funny. Honestly, I gotta say. Like, but like, there was one organization who was listed there, which was a bit odd.
I can't even remember.
It was
I don't
something
recall.
along the lines of ninjas in pajamas.
Oh yeah, of
Oh
course.
yes, yeah. I mean, to be fair, they have so much money as well, though. So like, I guess
Yeah,
and not a
and-
brand risk ever. So.
And like, it was weird when suddenly MIBR was listed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And all I could say, it wasn't like, it was correct what Noin had reported.
Okay.
Was it punishment for leaking it then?
No.
Oh,
Not
was
at
it-
all.
So why
It
why do they get
was-
close but then not get it?
Oh, they did something.
Oh no.
No. Actually,
Oh.
not. I respect NIP 100%.
Yeah, because NIP are a pretty.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be odd.
Actually, to be fair,
Yeah, I
though,
mean,
think
I mean,
the
like they
CEO is weird.
kind of fucked up on their European roster, but
Yeah.
Well, hey.
I do think it, just as a side note, like I think NIP are a really good org, but I think I've seen them on Twitter, someone who's high up at NIP is a bit weird, and he keeps tweeting dumb
True.
stuff. I can't remember who it is. I can't remember his name.
but that's the same thing with all
He's
of the
very high up.
organizations.
Yeah,
And he is like constantly battling people on Twitter. And
Also,
and
they've been bought out by some like Chinese like company or something,
what NIP?
or like has a major shareholder.
Oh god. Oh okay.
I guess.
Sure, fair. I didn't know about that.
That's how they got into like the Chinese like League of Legends scene, I believe.
Oh right. Okay. Sure.
Okay, spill the tea now.
Okay. Spill the tea.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
reason why
Mhm.
NIP didn't get in, Immortals Gaming Club.
Immortals
What?
Gaming- Wait,
Okay,
Immortals
so
Gaming?
like Immortals Gaming Club is like the one who owns Immortals and
Yeah, yeah,
MIBR.
MLBI,
Yeah.
yeah.
What did they
And
do?
basically, they did something like last minute,
Sure.
like very last minute, that basically fumbled everything.
Oh,
and
no.
basically gave them the spot.
What?
I won't review what it was,
Okay.
but let's just say it was just like you could be so pissed about it. That's,
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so
Like,
have fun trying to deal with that one on
Yeah.
broadcast. All of the America's people, because
Yeah.
that will be a fun one to keep under wraps.
Was that worse? Was it worse than like G2's fumble? Because I
would
feel like
say
G2's
it's more.
fumble was
I feel
historic.
like it's more a corporate fumble.
Oh, okay.
So and not a PR
like,
fumble.
what if like something like they just forgot to sign the contract, something stupid.
Oh,
like
my
Oh, no,
God.
no.
That would be
I
such.
do know a few
yeah.
organizations who
They
like
forgot to
forgot
send.
to submit.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, is there organizations who either forgot to, like you can like release that, but either forgot to submit or didn't submit just because like they kind of just like didn't really get round to it, or anything like, or they just didn't want to.
I believe Orangutan, Indian organization,
Sure,
they
yeah.
didn't submit because they were just so new and everything.
Okay, sure.
Bleed Esports talked about not really submitting.
Wait, Bleed didn't.
Not really submitting.
Oh, okay, sure.
Kind of, but kind of not.
Yeah.
I mean, like it was a weird situation. Not gonna lie.
Sure.
And I believe Team Finest forgot to submit or something.
But how much money do Team Finance actually have?
Oh, they have a fuck ton.
Really? Because
It's an Israeli organization, so they always have a lot of money.
I didn't realize necessarily. That makes a lot more sense. Fair enough. Okay, I can see where the money comes from. Then. Fair play.
So,
Yeah. I mean, interesting times
and
though.
what else? Let me think.
I'm just trying to
I believe
fit,
that-
fit in tea before we
Yeah.
finish the segment.
Yeah.
There was some like partnerships which were gonna happen like
Okay.
between organizations.
Like
Oh,
mergers
okay,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like mergers, but I don't know what happened with that.
That's
That's
quite
like suddenly it just went poof. Like
Oh.
there were, I believe, 2 or 3 partnerships coming
Sure.
for EMEA at least.
That's
Oh,
pretty
wow.
interesting. Okay, fair play. That could have been quite spicy actually. How would that have run as well? Would it have been like, let's say it was, I don't know.
Basically just like
Koi
rebrand,
heretics.
Yeah. I was gonna say something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. That's pretty cool.
like
That's pretty cool.
big Ascend or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's very interesting. I think obviously it's gonna be like Rostermania now. The only thing that I think is the interesting thing is that there's 3 weeks until the lock, so that's gonna make. I think it's gonna be an
That's
absolute
gonna be
mess.
insane.
Yeah.
By the time we've got the next, like, by the time we're recording the next episode of this, there's going to be so much to talk about already.
right,
Oh,
Bo,
boy.
on the spot though,
Roster
where's
Mania.
Ye going?
Yeah.
Where do you think Ye?
Where's Ye going?
Oh, the
Yeah.
prediction.
Oh
The
boy.
prediction. You got 2 weeks, right? Oh no, 3
I
weeks.
mean, on stream, Kojo leaked to me that Ye was going to join Fnatic.
Fnatic.
Oh.
Okay.
I know he's trolling.
All right, Kojo. Yeah, I was going to say Kojo. That's
We love Kojo. Kojo's the best.
So, do you reckon Ye comes to EMEA?
No.
No,
No.
staying in A.
No. Okay, here's the thing. EMEA has sensible money. Like they won't go like batshit crazy when it comes to
Okay.
Yeah.
North America and APAC, they could go batshit crazy.
Actually, yeah, APAC does seem like a pretty. He didn't like when he said, "Oh, I'm looking for like orgs to join." He did not mention Pacific. He said, "I'm open to NA and EMEA."
Yeah, I mean, I kind of
Yeah, but then like when he talked about not taking EMEA, he didn't mention APAC. Like he had some interesting offers in APAC.
Yeah, because APAC has mobile money, so much, mobile money.
Yeah.
My God.
The investment there is insane. I suppose, like, if you look at kind of like on paper teams that you can see just with kind of Yay in a jersey. I mean, Sentinels is kind of one of them. Sentinels need to make some changes. I mean, that's a pretty standard. They can't be running these shit content creators who can't keep up.
Yeah.
You know what? Like Shroud can shit on the game as much as he wants.
I did make like a prediction during my stream where I actually low key think that Victor and Crashies are going to Sentinels.
Oh, okay, I can see that. I can see the inspiration behind it. That kind of makes sense.
Basically, what I then said was basically Tens was going into Consecration over at 1 Hour Thieves.
What made you think that though?
Then list him as a sub for 1 Hour Thieves.
Okay.
Because like the sub thing, it can be interesting. Like you could take Sentinels and you could put Shroud as a sub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Or even Tarek.
Yeah, Tarek, my
I think you know what. In the end, what my the good ending is going to be is Yay to global esports, because you know that the Indian fan base of Optic is absolutely just wild. I just want to see one Optic player go to global esports really bad.
Okay, on the other side though, do you think there's going to be any big name players, like big tier 1 players from a franchise, from a team who didn't get franchising, who don't make it like immediately into a roster?
Yes, I actually do think.
Is there any that you think, like off the top of your head, that you could, like, they're not going to make it into the first wave of teams?
He may not be like the biggest name, but like Saya player.
Okay, right.
I low-key think like there are too many good Jet players.
Yeah, sure.
Too many. And I do think that like Saya player fits into a niche which most organizations don't want to commit into.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it could be quite spicy. I think the next.
But then he could just go to T1 or Genji. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Genji are going for Meteor, so it wouldn't really make any sense. Genji are basically I could basically leak it at this point. Genji are looking to get a Japanese-Korean mix. So
let's go.
That's gonna be sick. Okay.
They're gonna look at Reception. Last I heard.
I said this in the when you weren't here in the other segment that we did. I cannot wait for the APAC mixes. I cannot wait for for the Malaysia
Detonation
all
Gaming,
round to Indonesia and stuff like that.
Detonation Gaming, they were looking at OCE players.
Okay,
cool.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
I have big respect for that. If they're gonna pick anybody up, that's a good question.
I just
maybe
want
it's just a PR move.
I want the full SEA super team, you know?
Yeah.
So far they've always stuck to like Singapore and Malaysia and stuff like that. I want the super team. Give me all the best players.
But also
SEA.
like there's some like regional prowess.
Yeah.
I do think that Thailand needs a full Thai roster because it's still a region that needs developing.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
no, I agree.
Should be spicy.
And I do think that Patafan is like going one day over to Talon, but as a sub.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say
there's
that's
a lot
an
of, like,
interesting
big name
time to
players.
retire.
Yeah, like there's a big amount of like big name players who basically I feel like can fit in as a sub, where they can basically just practice with the team, not really be like the main part of the roster, but learn.
Yeah, for sure,
and that's also why I think Stewie 2K is going to be listed as a sub.
I forgot about Stewie. Yeah,
I'm
because he's still under them as a consecration.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure Stewie's going to play Val for EG. That was my
or he's going into like I heard they were working on like on the off season. Stewie 2K was going to play some like tournaments with some like a little stack of streamers.
That could be cool.
That kind of stuff. I mean, he literally only plays that on stream now. That's what he does.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he's like. I think someone I saw on Twitter like he hadn't even opened CS in the last 2 weeks. So
there
are other players who. I could maybe. Okay, I can't really leak that. But like, there are some CS players who like have double the hours on Valorant than Counter-Strike.
Imagine. Yeah.
MBK.
I mean,
one of them, a pretty big like op player. I'll let you guys. Oh no!
I don't care. Kenny S.
Kenny S. I would expect him to go to Carmine Corp.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I thought Carmine Corp because they love him. Like they obviously he's French, right? So I
So
can
like
imagine him.
Enzo, Kenny S, Keith Takas, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Logan from BDS.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's who are we missing? Maybe
Because,
Brahms.
this.
Mhm.
Wow,
Brahms,
this might be
okay.
the second. This might be the second coming of the CS. The CS,
The
you know,
CS
migration.
wave. Yeah. But then also,
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be a wave in a sense back, especially in NA. I think
Oh,
there's gonna be
yeah,
a wave
definitely,
of
Oh,
Valorant
yeah.
players back
I think
to
we're going to
CS.
do a lot of swapping. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, there's gonna
swapping
be.
talent.
There's always going to be swapping between Valorant and
Yeah.
CS.
I mean,
Yeah.
because
So like,
obviously they're different
when CS is
games,
going
but they're
bad,
interchangeable. The skills.
people are gonna go to Valorant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
When Valorant is going bad, they're
Yep.
going out to CS.
Exactly. Just follow the money.
Then they have no
basically.
money, and then they go back to Valorant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just follow the cash. I mean, it's the best way to
Yeah.
do it. Obviously, they're making a living, but I'll be very surprised when I don't see Stewie playing for EG because he's listed under them. He's contracted already. I think his contract's still got 2 years left with EG as well. So they may as well get some use out of him, get him as a player, get him play. Because obviously, that first iteration of whatever EG's roster is going to be, unless they poach an entire other roster, is going to be garbage. So in the grand scheme of things, you may as well use this guy who's actually pretty good at Valorant, to be perfectly honest. I watch some of his streams. The guy knows his shit. Obviously,
It's the same thing with like Benji Fishy.
Oh, yeah. No,
I low-key think it would make sense to have him on Team Liquid.
I mean, even his following alone,
Content,
PR-wise.
And a really good player overall.
Yeah. I mean, PR. I mean, does he have like some stupid like 20 million followers on Twitter? Something fucking ridiculous. So like,
not 20 million. 2
oh,
million, I guess.
No, 2 million. Yeah, I know he has
20
20 million is a good budget.
Yeah,
Oh,
20 million,
my.
actually 20 million is very much from what I'm thinking about. Yeah, he had multiple millions of followers or something stupid.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it. I was like, fair play. Like, you know, any brand who picks him up, just like PR wise. I mean, I guess it's the same with Tarek, right? I mean, as streamers go, he's as big as they get. To be honest, like he's in that like top 5 list, you know, month on month in terms of his viewership, his subscribers, etc. So, I mean, you know, for Sentinels, it's a very clean pickup. It's just like, you know, this guy very, and also brand wise as well, he's perfect. I mean, he doesn't really ever make any mistakes. He seems pretty on it.
Oh, I would actually something that I'm going to predict is NRG are going to be the dark horse of North America.
Ooh.
As in,
Like they might win it all because like I know in the past NRG have been very good when it comes to franchise leagues, picking up players and being very methodical. What is best, and like with the San Francisco Shock, I mean like that already tells you a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess NRG are going to be the optic of 2023.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, actually, you're right. Because every esport that I remember NRG getting involved with, where they wanted to go all in, they've done incredibly. Rocket League, obviously, is another one. Overwatch, obviously.
They
so
fell off
that could
recently, but like
yeah. But yeah, that could be interesting because they have a clean slate. Obviously, they don't have a lot of time to build a team, but with a clean slate, you can do quite a lot.
I actually feel like okay. So low key, all right. FNS
Just keep
replacing Hayes, Marved getting in, and maybe they are the ones who get Yay.
Okay.
So and like Chet, he already has past experience with NRG. He's worked with them in CS. He's worked with them in Valorant. He started off Valorant with NRG.
Yeah.
So they could very likely get Chet. So they could maybe be the one who actually get the optic core.
That's huge, actually.
Okay, that's actually
I mean, they have the money.
I was gonna say.
So and NRG doesn't care about match fixing accusations. They had techs. Come on.
Yeah, true.
Very true. They don't have that kind of like that level of a moral compass compared to EG. They're like wins or wins.
They are
boys.
a very
Let's
businessy business.
No, I respect it. Well, boys, it's been like an hour or so, so we'll call it there. Any final words, Bo? Any final things you want to leave us with before we dip here?
I'm still sad that like unnamed football club didn't make it.
Oh yeah, who was that meant to be? Do you know?
Come on.
That was AS Monaco.
I knew it. It was Monaco.
And basically the reason why they
because it's a tax haven. That's got to be why.
like they were basically like Gambit, basically.
Yeah.
It was basically just Gambit.
All their money is dirty. The whole country is dirty money. Like
that's football. That's football.
Yeah, no. But the thing is that made me laugh a lot. Right? It was like I heard this thing like, AS Monaco might be making it through, and I was like, how are they allowed? But then like
they wouldn't.
These other orgs who are like brand rich aren't allowed when their money is all dirty. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's just it was just ironic to me. But so I guess in the grand scheme of things, I kind of stuck that.
I am glad Riot have generally stuck to having good morals in terms of what the decisions they're making.
Yeah, and also like
so far,
the decisions, it's organizations who are going to like keep investing for the next like 10 years.
Yeah, it's long term, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So.
It's all long term. It's a reset of the Valorant scene.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that means that like the big players, they might not make it.
Yeah. There are going to be a lot of upsets, unfortunately.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
Twiggy, any final thoughts before we call it there?
No, obviously, thank you, Bodork, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been an
always
an absolute pleasure.
Actually.
Yeah. Really.
Thank you for making me like mold so much. I love molding.
There's a lot to mold about. It's all good. This is a safe space. The Two in the Chamber podcast, I think we need to set up as a safe space.
I mean, like a
to mold.
podcast as a safe space. That's not really true because like it's gonna get published.
Yeah.
So
safe space.
No.
Just
what
for
happens
just
in
for
Two in the Chamber
information,
stays in Two in the
legally,
Chamber.
I will not. Nothing of what I said I took seriously. Okay,
No, everything we say is a joke.
For legal reasons, everything that I said is a joke.
Sarcastic. Yeah, that's
okay, guys.
how it is.
Everything's
I don't want to be sued again. Okay.
Yeah, everything is alleged. Yeah,
everything is alleged. Nothing is serious.
Yeah, for legal reasons. We need to put that into the descriptions of all our videos. For legal reasons, everything we have said is a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
well,
I don't want to be sued again. So like. Thank God.
Thank you for joining us, Bo.
I've already been sued once, so
here we go.
Don't want to do that again.
We'll leave it at once. Thank you for joining us, Bo. We'll see you after the rest of the segment in a moment, but cheers, Bo, and take care, people. That's franchising bit done and dusted. Special guest, easy stuff. See you in a bit.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed. All right.
Hello, welcome back. Of course, we're going back into essentially what is there to look forward to over the next. Well, I guess few weeks, months. This is now essentially the off season, isn't it? I mean, we got kind of the lot, obviously Champions being the last thing, kind of officially riots for the rest of 2022. Now we've got kind of 3 to 4 months, more or less. But it's not like it's going to be dead air. It's not like there's going to be nothing happening. There's a few third-party tournaments happening. But of course, I guess the first thing that to really talk about is game changers, right? That's the big one. I saw you're pretty happy about Bar1. You've even worked it. So go on, give your thoughts.
So I did a little bit of the qualifiers for EMEA Game Changers. I'm friends with a lot of people on a lot of teams with Game Changers. I'm really passionate about Game Changers, and not just because like it's cool, it's new, because I'm so excited that there's going to be an international competition this time around for Game Changers and something like a LAN that people can go to. And because look, as guys, we've had so many. How many times have you seen a CS:GO pro on stage and been like, "I want to do that. I want to be that person." Like it's me, inspiring. 2012, seeing Guardian on stage hitting shots with his op and being like, "That is, I want to be that person. I want to do that with my life." So I started playing CS at like 12 years old. Girls have never had that experience. Women just have not had that experience of seeing somebody on stage and being like, "This is what I want to do with my life." And so I'm really excited for the next generation of female pros, like the people who are currently like 10, 11, 12, something like that, and are seeing these people play live on stage. They're going to be like, this is, and they're going to have years of experience of playing this game. They're going to be radiant by the time they're 16, able to compete.
Exactly.
And they'll be able to, and we will finally see, and this is going to be a statement that people will think is just me saying stuff, virtue signaling. No, we're going to see that women have absolutely no disadvantage when it comes to gameplay. It's just the amount of experience that they've had so far has not held a candle to guys.
It's kind of multiple factors when you consider about it in terms of kind of they've not had the experience and also the investment. I think that's the to put it absolutely bluntly, it is also the investment, and that prior to Valorant, also as well, you got to realize that Valorant actually really kind of really kicked up a bit of a fire under a lot of other games to really kind of pick up their female scene, because it is leading the way. It was the first kind of for a kind of first major tournament we saw come through when Valorant in its inception of kind of seeing this amazing females or kind of like female only tournament in a sense where you can really inspire, as you mentioned, the next generation. But it's really cool. I mean, I watched a bit of your qual when you were casting. I saw you. I tuned in for a little bit, and so far there's been some banging games. It's safe to say. I think the qualifier's been running for a little while now. Honestly, goes the official broadcast starts on the 29th, so that should be pretty sick. But yeah, as you mentioned, just kind of seeing kind of someone who's like an idol on the stage, that's what kind of inspires the kind of the next lot of people coming through. And you always speak about these like I was like analysts and casters, and we were like talking about these young talents who come through, and we see it so often in Champions with the guys, these young guys, they're 17, 18 years old age, and they're kind of they're inspired by someone who's there. It's this amazing story and narrative, and hopefully we get more of the same with Game Changers. That's kind of the beautiful thing.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. There are some people that I'm following right now who look to be some of the next big things, not just in Game Changers, but straight up just in, competitive Valorant, because like 15-year-olds who are currently like Immortal 3 and stuff like that,
Crazy,
and just could really change stuff about, like actually be game changers. Haha, there we go, cool. But yeah, no, I've loved it because. Yeah. We're working towards the ultimate goal of having fully mixed teams in franchising and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And I think that is from what I've seen, that is more than a possibility now. Like
100%.
Way more than a possibility. Like we saw the viewership for Masters in live in I think Masters the last one in Berlin.
Yes. Yeah.
Not Berlin. Sorry, Copenhagen was a large amount of it was female audience, which just shows that now we do have that kind of viewership that is, even if guys don't watch a lot of Game Changers, which is true, most of Game Changers' audience is also female right now, there is that opportunity for investment based off of, we have a lot of female viewers now, we have a lot of female marginalized genders viewers and people who are really interested in this kind of thing coming forward. And we're seeing the effects of it in real time in that, you've seen people like Fluorescent over in NA, who is just a really insane, hasn't been able to play in an official event yet because still 15, just turned 16 as far as I'm aware. There are people like that in EMEA. Princess Els is one of those people that I follow right now, who is incredibly cracked and hasn't been able to play yet, and we'll see that coming forward. And I think we are going to see some absolutely unbelievably cracked people come through in the next 5 or so years. And I've already planned for the next 6 years in franchising, so I don't see why they don't have a similar plan for Game Changers.
The interesting thing as well is, I know you've kind of had this thought is about C9 White, right? Are they going to be still the dominant force? I know obviously there's a lot of conversation about G2 Kazan as well. I mean, those ladies for a long time have been seriously good. It doesn't really matter what game they're in as well. They're always been an unbelievably good side. But I'm really interested to see who comes out on top, because I think it's been a little bit of a while now. We've had kind of a little bit of off break from Game Changers. It's been a lot of time to work on the craft, and with the change that we made, of course, the introduction of Pearl coming through, new agents into play, it does really open a door for potentially a bit of an upset coming through, or a side that maybe people didn't expect to get as far do exactly that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. That's the thing, right? We have not seen an international, we haven't seen C9 White come up against an EU team, or we haven't seen APAC teams compete against EMEA teams in Game Changers so far. So I'm really interested to see what the kind of skill levels are between regions right now, and it will encourage people to really get better at the game, because that's what it did in regular VCT as well. Sentinels dominated the field, and then everybody rose up, and we saw EMEA teams getting to the top. Exactly. And then Sentinels suddenly not a good team anymore because they never really improved as much as everybody else did. So that's an exciting thing as well, because we'll see the quality of play really rise up after we see all of these teams push forward in the international stage. So I'm really excited to watch that.
Of course, speaking of third-party tournaments, another pretty big one is the Red Bull Campus Clutch. That is back again. I think last time out it was pretty good. I think a lot of people I knew who played in some of the qualifiers really enjoyed it. I think generally speaking, Red Bull run good tournaments. I think there's no sugarcoating that at all. They know how to run them. It's a pretty interesting tournament, all things considered as well. Excuse me, as it's student based, right? Which is I guess kind of showing how competent the grassroots scene is as well to a degree. I mean that's kind of the cool thing about it, and you kind of see all of these qualifiers here from all over. But the representation across the board is pretty sick. I know obviously I was kind of at university, and my uni was pretty decent, so I'm interested to see kind of if any of those guys compete. But it's cool to see, basically. Campus Clutch is back. I think as well the talent, from my understanding, is also going to be student based as well. So it gives opportunities for kind of newer casters and analysts to come onto the scene and maybe show their stuff.
Yeah, I'm assuming that mostly that it's going to be qualifiers are going to be a lot of kind of student talent and stuff like that, and then we'll see kind of a little injection of other talent into the bigger, obviously the finals and stuff like that. But it's always been awesome. I mean, like we saw, it was Madrid last time, was it not? Because Spain won the So it was an awesome event last time. I can't wait to watch it this time. Hopefully get involved. We'll see. But I mean, Red Bull puts together. Yeah, Oh my god, imagine.
I know. It's pretty.
Well,
sick.
that's the thing, right? I want some really exotic country to win. I don't want to go to the UK I don't want to go to Manchester to watch the finals of the Red Bull Campus Clutch. As much as I want UK to do well, I don't want to go to take me to like I don't know. I'll go Lisbon, something like that. Let's go somewhere interesting.
I don't want to end up in like Birmingham, to be honest.
Oh god. Oh god.
got other places that I prefer to be perfectly honest. But
you're waking up, you're just like, oh, Campus Clutch finals today, and then you realise you're in Birmingham.
They ruined.
Oh no.
But yeah, pretty sick. 50,000 students, 400 events. I mean, it's very kind of, it's long term in terms of what is, it spans basically the entirety of the off season. So really cool to see. Obviously, we know Red Bull run really good events. I've got to say as well, their staging is unbelievable as well.
So cool.
So should be very interesting, and to follow that as well, of course, another massive one which everyone knew was going to happen, come either way, was of course Spike Nations and Blast. They again also know how to run an event. Last time out, it was very, very good. I remember like the content on the desk was pretty sick. So this is what we've got so far. 12 EMEA based teams, 60,000 euros prize pool that goes towards charity, 14th to 16th of October. And yeah, pretty good. I mean, it looks pretty decent. You look at some of the teams as well. Team UK, France, Spain, Portugal, Nordics, Poland, Turkey, DAC, which of course are in Germany, Austria and Switzerland, Benelux, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and then Eastern Europe. Obviously a lot of teams in Eastern Europe, and then MENA. So yeah, it should be pretty sick. And from my understanding as well, it's kind of obviously some pro players, content creators, personalities, like famous people, quote unquote, the whole lot. So it's going to be kind of quite a nice variety of like, very good players, but then like, the personalities that you know and love within the game. It should be pretty fun. I'm excited to see how it pans out.
But Blast always put on great events because, like, we know they kind of got a bit screwed over with in terms of broadcasting regular, like, lots of VCT events and stuff like that, and because we know they're massive in CS:GO. Obviously, Blast put on tons of events in CS:GO. They didn't really have the opportunity to in Valorant because there was a lot of stuff going on with broadcast producers and a lot of competition in that area. But I always look forward to Blast events because they're just so fun to watch and they're just all really well put together. So this should be very good. Yeah,
I think in terms of production, Blast, in terms of every game they touch, seems to be they're up there. It's some of the best. I mean, they know how to run a show. I mean, they are seriously good in terms of production. Even if you want to take CS as a great example, I mean, some of the tournaments they've had recently have been nothing short of spectacular. I mean, the one in Lisbon for CS:GO was absolutely brilliant. I know, of course, they're just getting a major in Paris in towards May of 2023. So the guys know how to run a show. They know what they're doing. So it should be very interesting to see as well. I remember that the desk bits were pretty funny last season. I mean, who knows?
Beautiful.
Who knows what's happening?
I mean, look, here's the thing. You get Ian on a desk, you get immediate content. That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
Exactly that. So should be interesting to see. But either way, we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. That should say that's obviously 14th to 16th of October, and it should be sick. It should be really good to see. I'm hoping that one. I'm hoping it ends up being as good as is sort of on paper. Especially the same with Red Bull as well. Both of them, they know how to run events. They're very, very competent at running events. And I'm glad they get their shot in the off season. Also as well, a conversation that is definitely one to kind of think about is how they get integrated in towards 2023 onwards. Is there going to be, obviously I'm assuming from my understanding there isn't going to be too much of an off season. So then it's kind of a question of how are they integrated? Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I assume, like, the thing is, I feel like the International League is going to be running, above everything else the whole time, and I think that's going to be the year-round thing. Maybe there'll be a little off-season break every now and then, but I think everything else will kind of run under that, and I think Riot is going to give a little more freedom to third-party tournament organizers to do that thing, but it's obviously now it's not going to take precedent anymore because there will be that overarching International League thing going on all the time, so it's going to be mostly tier 2 events basically.
Who knows? Well, I guess that is they're the main things for now that we know is on the table. I mean, I don't know, is there anything else you're excited about over the next kind of I guess we haven't really even decided how long. We're going with every 2 weeks roughly, aren't we? That's kind of like, that's on paper, but we'll have to wait and see. I think even though it's kind of like there's no tournament at the moment, they're actually quite interesting every 2 weeks at the moment, just because of there's going to be like a million changes being made every week. So I'm sure each one of these episodes there's going to be a lot to talk about regardless. But anything over the next 2 weeks that you're excited about? Anything you're working on?
Let's see. I'm doing an event tomorrow for
Okay.
G-Loot, which it seems like they've got something planned coming up soon. Maybe I don't know what it is. I don't know yet. I can't say anything because I don't know, and also probably because it seems confidential whatever they're doing. So I don't know. Probably shouldn't say anything. But yeah. So that seems cool. And I actually probably it'll be announced by the time
Tuesday
this
goes
podcast is out.
So yeah,
yeah.
You would have
So
already
probably it will
cast
be
it,
announced.
so.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what's going on there. But I think there is going to be more off-season events that we think there are. Lots of unannounced stuff, I think, is going to be happening, but we have no idea. Yeah,
nothing confirmed.
So,
So I mean, it is basically Red Bull and Blast that are confirmed, basically, of
pretty
kind
much.
of third parties. But then obviously, there will definitely be more creeping in. So I'm interested to see how it works out. I think it's more just kind of everything now at the moment seems like speculation. So that's kind of like that piques my interest. And I'm not working on anything, but the only thing I can think of that in terms of like being excited is definitely the transfers, like where to opt to go. Because I think even in 2 weeks' time, we should probably have a pretty good understanding of where they're going, where the rumors are at the very least, and the massive amount of changes. Because in 2 weeks' time, there's going to be a week deadline left to lock in the roster. So realistically, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a lot to talk about. We'll have to sort of wait and see. 2 to 3 weeks time, depending on how busy we are. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, should be very spicy. But aside from that, Twiggathan, I think we're concluded here. Good first episode, of course. Massive thank you to Bo for joining us, explaining a lot of stuff that we kind of speculated, which made our life a little bit easier. But I guess we can bid you farewell. Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. We're going to try and stick to this every 2-3 weeks, depending on how busy we are, depending on what there is to talk about as well. But we'll aim for 2-3 weeks. Of course, you see our socials below. Go and check them out. Go and check out Twiggy's. It's below. All linked. All the good stuff. You mentioned you got the TikToks as well. If you want to get your information, that's what you go and head out, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you for joining us, Twiggy. Any farewells before we go?
I thank you for joining us. I don't have anything extra to say. You said it perfectly yourself.
Brilliant, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. It's been Two in the Chamber. First episode, a pilot episode. It's a little bit rough around the edges. We'll work, and we'll see you all very, very soon. For now, we do bid you farewell. Goodbye.